My psycho boss from last summer lied a lot, but her biggest one was that she said to everybody that she was Miss Alaska. And even though I investigated this and tried to look into it as best as I could, she simply had no evidence that any of this was true, as she lied to everybody for years about this. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that this woman in question is very beautiful and in her late 40s, so maybe that's why so many people just believed her right off the bat. Last summer when I worked for her, I was in my mid-20s. I was hired for a restaurant and lodge work position in a small rural town. The first day I was under her employment during orientation, she had everyone sign NDAs. I've never had to sign an NDA for a restaurant job before, at least not this kind of NDA before. Sure, I've had to sign to keep trade secrets under wraps before, and I'd never exposed those, but this was different. This was an NDA to keep us quiet, more like a Kardashian type NDA, which is not a good sign straight out of the gate. Directly after we all signed, or she verified we signed online, she proceeded to tell us that up here in Alaska, restaurant owners had to pay an additional 40% tax on their employees' tips. This lady was literally lying through her teeth all summer long. She lied to her employees, messed with tip money, and allocated it strangely. Somehow, all of our tipped income came in the form of cash, and no complaints about that, but it was always a few dollars and a couple cents short of what our hourly earned rate was. If my check for my hourly wages was like $1,000, my cash tip would always be something like $998.75, or something like that. She said it's just how it all usually came out, that it pretty closely matched my hourly pay. But to me, this math was not making sense. She also played favorites based on religion. The Christian workers ended up getting paid more and got more hours than the non-Christian ones. But the wildest thing I heard her lie about was one she told to everyone in town. She told everyone in town, including her employees and even fooling her own husband and children, that we were meant to believe that she was at one point Miss Alaska. I remember she told me about it while we were all driving in a van one day. I immediately went to look her up because I wanted to see how she looked in her dress, and I was excited to have girl talk about it with her. At the time, we were driving through a section of road with no service, so I made a mental note to look it up later. She had talked about it for a bit, but at my questioning and attempted excited girl talk, she seemed to shrug away from talking about it in detail and changed the subject pretty quickly, and that had me feeling really suspicious about all of it. As soon as I got into service, I looked up every Miss Alaska the state has ever had, and she is nowhere in that list. I didn't say anything to her as not to embarrass her in the moment and piss her off, since she already didn't love me since I'm not Christian. Plus, I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing her name somehow. I researched and researched everywhere I could, even checked at a local library to see old news articles about past Miss Alaska, and nothing with her name on it ever showed up. I looked for one for every year and her name was not there. When I asked people in town who knew her about it, they would all excitedly tell me that she was Miss Alaska, but none of them had even seen her win or had even known her when she won. They had all just been told to by her or someone else that she was Miss Alaska. They all believe it and have not questioned it. Her own husband thinks that she was Miss Alaska. Even her children believe that. I mean, really, why lie about something so easy to look up? Well, surprise, surprise, I ended up parting with her company on poor terms. It's the only job I've ever been fired from in my life. After she fired me, she called me a cancer and told me she was going to cut me out of town. I mean, she was a very high drama woman. Now, most of the time, I really just don't care about this lady anymore. She is often not worth wasting my thoughts or my breath on. However, I recently found out that since I have left her employment, this boss has lied and talked crap about me to anyone who will listen, even complete strangers that walk into her restaurant. So I don't feel bad exposing the fact that she lied about being Miss Alaska. But here's a definitive warning to any other servers in the restaurant business. Do not work in a place that makes you sign an NDA, because that is a massive red flag that you definitely should not ignore. Holy crap, what a psychopath. Seriously, this is some crazy behavior. You can bet that this lady's been spreading this lie for years, all because for the first time it probably makes her feel special. Like seriously, what a weird lie. Like dude, you are such a loser for doing that. And it's one of those grandiose ones that are really easy to look up. Like if you really were Miss Alaska, there would be some kind of photo or some kind of like news article about it. There would be talk in the town that yeah, this local person was Miss Alaska, and not just because you said it and therefore it's gonna be true. So yeah, maybe you did get fired and it was under like really bad circumstances, but at least you're not lying about being Miss Alaska, because that's a lie that absolutely is insane to try and justify. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My former best friend who demanded my dog after we broke up is trying to sue me for emotional distress, putting me in one of the most ridiculous situations I've ever been in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so we adopted a dog by the name of Buddy a year into our relationship. I paid for the adoption fee, all the vet vet bills. I paid for his food, his training, etc. My name is the only one on all the paperwork and the microchip. Now, when we split, she agreed that Buddy should stay with me since he's deeply bonded to me and my apartment is his home. But a month later, she started demanding I give him to her because she was lonely and needed him more. But I simply refused. Now, after I repeatedly told her no and blocked her number, which is right when I was getting these text messages that were awful, I thought it was all over, but I was completely wrong. Because last week, I was served papers. Yes, she is suing me over this. And this is not for ownership of the dog. Her lawyer was apparently smart enough to tell her that she has no legal claim there. She is suing me for $10,000 for emotional distress and for loss of companionship. The claim states that by withholding a shared emotional support asset, yeah, that's what they're calling my dog, I have caused her severe anxiety and depression. It also claims that I am unjustly enriching myself by retaining 100% of the affection and companionship of the dog that apparently we raised, and she included selfies of her and Buddy as evidence of their bond. Well, when I got this, I had to hire a lawyer. He read the filing and just started laughing. He said it's the most frivolous, entitled lawsuit he has seen in years, and that we will easily get dismissed. He's drafting a response now demanding that she pay for my legal fees when we win. Now, the wildest part is that her mom called me, not to apologize by the way, but to tell me I should just settle. She said it would be easier for everyone if you just paid her something so she can move on. Think of it as a final breakup gift. So now I'm out $2,000 for a lawyer so far, just to defend myself against this nonsense. But I'm going to follow my lawyer's advice to the letter, and I will be countersuing for every single penny I've had to spend on this, because this situation is absolutely insane. Man, your former friend is an idiot. Seriously. Who in their right mind would be like, oh, I'm suing you because you didn't give me the dog? You know, the same dog you literally said, oh yeah, you could keep that dog. It's yours. You guys have a bond. Like, what a moron. Are you kidding me right now? Like, what's stopping her from buying a new dog? Like, seriously. Instead, she's wasting her time and $2,000, if not more, just to sue someone else for their dog. Like, what a ridiculous thing to do to somebody. So I really hope this all works out in your favor because, like you said, this really is a frivolous lawsuit, and I'm willing to bet that the judge and anybody else who sees that will also agree. Today, I got some petty revenge by making my coworker eat some ground coffee, humiliating him in a way that he absolutely deserved. Here's what happened. So I work in a quite small office with a team of only 8 people. Our kitchen is so small that only one person can stand inside at a time. No fancy equipment, just a microwave and a kettle. This coworker of mine, although not a bad person at heart, can just be very annoying at times. He acts like a know-it-all, even though he might not actually know what something is. He will make up some BS on the spot, and if you try to educate him about a new thing, he will just dismiss you. So a few days ago, we got a box of coffee grounds, which I was surprised to see because there was no filter papers, French press, or any other similar equipment in the office kitchen to make ground coffee from. I have worked in a cafe before, so I knew that ground coffee cannot be made like instant coffee because it does not completely dissolve in water. But the smell of that coffee was heavenly, so I really wanted to try it out, but I couldn't due to the lack of equipment. Well, this guy says to me, well, what's the big deal? Just mix it in water and make it like normal. To which I tried to tell him that this is not the same, but like always, he just dismissed me. I asked him to smell it, and he too said that he loved the smell, so I said, you should eat it. And you know what? That's exactly what he did. Just the tiniest amount, and then he said that it was good. But I think he was absolutely lying. And it was then that I decided to call his bluff. I said that he should make the coffee the way he was describing. And you know what? He took it as a challenge. He put some water in the coffee grounds, stirred for a while, and then added some milk. It was still looking pale white, and the coffee hadn't brewed at all. But I waited for the look on his face after he took a sip. He tried to pretend it was not as bad, but I just burst out laughing. Then I attempted to make the coffee using a tea strainer, just to show him how it could be made. And you know what? It somewhat worked. This dude had to eat his own words along with the ground coffee, making this entire situation so very worth it. Holy crap, I love this story so much. First of all, this guy absolutely had this coming because I've had a coworker like this before. They can never be wrong. They're always arguing against whatever you're saying, regardless of what it is, and they just always have to be right. So I'm sure it must have been a fantastic experience watching his face melt as he realized the coffee he was making is probably not exactly what he was thinking of. So truly, good for you for tricking this guy because I think he absolutely deserved it. Am I the jerk for wanting my alcoholic aunt and her 3-year-old son out of the house after they literally destroy our house in a way that's completely disgusting? Because even after they've moved out, my mom is suggesting that we take the 3-year-old toddler back into our house so that we can raise him instead of my aunt, leaving me in an awful situation because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. So last year, my mom let my homeless aunt move into our home with her toddler. She gave her my little sister's room, forcing me and my sister to share a room, and told us it would only be for a few weeks, just enough time for her to get back on her feet. Well, it's been nearly a year and nothing has changed. changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. My aunt is a full-blown alcoholic. She's always drunk, constantly starts fights with everyone. She yells, insults us, and basically makes the house miserable. She does nothing to help out around the house either. And the worst of all is that she completely neglects her son. From the beginning, we were the ones doing everything for him. He wasn't potty trained when he arrived, and it was us, not her, who had to train him. He used to go to the bathroom all over the home, literally because she refused to buy him diapers, and she wouldn't clean up after him either. And when she broke her leg, she was now the one that we had to clean up after. And she was so nasty. Her room was a mess. The smell was completely unbearable. She constantly disrespected my parents, especially my mom. If she got scolded, she would then yell, "Oh, I get it, just shut up," and then lock herself in the room like a teenager. Now, her son has improved a bit, but he's now an extremely bratty toddler. He doesn't listen, he throws tantrums constantly, and repeats the same bad behavior no matter how many times he's corrected. I know it's not his fault entirely, and I do feel bad for him, but that doesn't mean that I want to raise him. My mom had finally had enough and told her sister to leave yesterday. Well, she did in fact leave, but now there's talk of us keeping her kid and raising him, since according to them, he's innocent. I mean, my mom even suggested it, but I shut that idea down immediately because I knew I'd be the one doing all the work. And I know this because this happened with my nephew. And don't get me wrong, I love the kid, but my God, I'm not doing that again. I am a child-free person. I've never signed up for this, and I don't want to raise anyone else's kid, period. I already did way more than I ever agreed to in my opinion. And now I'm wondering if I'm heartless for saying no to keeping the child. I know he'll probably just get bounced around between other relatives, and that really sucks, but I am not his parent, and I can't sacrifice my peace and future for someone else's irresponsibility. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think you did the right thing by turning that down, because your mom's completely out of her mind if she thinks, "Oh yeah, we'll take care of him. He is innocent. He doesn't understand the world." Because you said it yourself, you would be the one to take care of that kid, and that is not something you signed up for. So no, you are not the jerk, and honestly, that kid is not your responsibility. And I know for a fact if I was in your shoes and your mom was somehow successful in getting that kid back in the house, I would personally start trying to find some other place to live, because there's no way you should ever be forced to deal with that. Am I overreacting over my mother-in-law injecting my wife with Ozempic against her will? Because despite the fact that I'm furious after she did that to my wife is still on the fence about cutting her off or not, leaving me boiling mad and honestly not sure what to do next. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my wife's mom is not only insane, but in my opinion is an objectively bad person. She abandoned my wife when she was 6 years old so that she could party, sleep with lots of men, and live her life, as she would put it. My wife's dad died around this same time, and she ended up being raised by her stepdad. Her mom was always unpredictable, mean, and at times very violent. Ever since meeting my wife, I've seen several terrible behaviors from my mother-in-law. She tried to talk my wife into donating some of her eggs to her so she could have another child to appease a boyfriend. She set up dinners with my wife and then canceled them time and time again, and my wife is always crushed. She regularly calls my wife names that are absolutely awful, and at one point, she even said she was going to try and take part of my wife's inheritance from her deceased father, even though the court had ruled that all of it went to my wife. I mean, the list goes on and on. Well, today was my last straw. My wife is voluptuous, curvy, and thick, and I absolutely love her body. Well, her mom started taking Ozempic, and out of the blue, she told my wife that she was too fat and she needed an injection. My wife said no over and over again, but her mom is extremely pushy. So what she did next honestly shocked me. She lifted up my wife's shirt and injected her belly without her consent and against her will. And now I'm furious. I immediately said, no, she is cut off and she can never see you or hurt you ever again. My wife is very upset about the injection, but also isn't sure she wants to cut her off just yet. I believe she's forgiving and rationalizing this because she's happy to have any relationship with her mom at all, especially after being abandoned by her as a child. So seriously, am I overreacting for my mother-in-law injecting my wife against her will? Because right now I'm so mad that I can't even see straight. Oh my gosh, no, you're not overreacting. Your wife is delusional if she thinks this is okay. Because you hit the nail on the head. She's absolutely trying to rationalize this away. And this is not on the same level as anything else this woman's done in the past. This is quite literally her assaulting your wife. Like, this is so messed up. Who knows what that could have done to your wife? Like, you can't just give someone an injection like that when they're like, no, I don't want this, over and over again. So no, you're not overreacting. If anything, you're the only rational person in this situation, because your wife's mom is absolutely insane, and getting away from her and keeping her away from your wife should absolutely be the top priority. My boss demands that anytime we take a vacation day, we need to give a solid reason why. So I decided to maliciously comply by quite literally trauma dumping some fake scenarios in my life to make him regret ever wanting to know why I was taking time off. Here's what happened. So I work at a pretty low-stress job, which makes it absolutely hilarious that my boss demands that whenever we take our paid time off, we have to give a good reason. Like, dude, why do I need to give you a good reason to take my vacation days? They're mine. I'm entitled to take them, to dedicate the time to my new hobby of staring at the ceiling, and it literally is none of your business. Well, I had planned to take a few days off to recharge after a very relatively intense work week, and unfortunately, the boss thought this was a great time to send a reminder email that if we intend to take time off, we need to provide a reason and have it approved. And this proved to be a fatal mistake on his part. I went into his office with my head hanging low, and I started talking about my dad's cancer and how intensive his chemotherapy was. I didn't make myself cry, but I was putting that theater class I took in college to good use. I think I might have even said, well, I'm just so used to seeing my dad as this strong, invulnerable guy, but he's just a human, you know? And soon he might be gone. How do you even deal with something like that? Now, at this point, my dad had been cancer-free for years, so this was purely performative, but my boss just looked so uncomfortable. It was great. I wish I could say this caused the boss to send out an email saying we no longer needed to give a reason for our time off, but I had no such luck. Instead, I just kept coming up with other traumatic life experiences to justify my vacations. And I think my grandma died 3 times the past few years. I mean, the poor woman. Which means I may need to come up with something new for when she actually does die. My boss still gets visibly uncomfortable whenever I come to ask for time off in person instead of via email, which to me is absolutely hilarious. Yeah, first of all, that's a really stupid policy that guy has, and honestly, I love the fact that you're taking advantage of it. It literally begs the question, oh, you want me to give you a good reason? Congratulations and get the Oscar ready because I'm gonna give you the performance of a lifetime. Because I'm right there with the original poster, like my personal time off is my time and not yours. I don't have to give you a reason, I could literally just sit at home and do nothing. And why should I have to give a reason? Just so you can try to guilt trip me out of going on vacation? Like, dude, I've got to take time off just like anybody else. And having you breathe down my neck about it is not going to make my situation enjoyable. So good for you for making this guy incredibly uncomfortable because from the sounds of it, he absolutely deserved it. An entitled mom lets her stupid son play with my $200 Lego set after being told repeatedly not to do it, resulting in this Lego set being destroyed accidentally according to them, in a way that makes me wonder if there's any pieces still missing. And I'm honestly still pissed off at this and I just don't know what to do. Here's how it went down. Okay, to start things off, I'm a big Lego collector, and a year ago for my birthday, I received a retired Indominus Rex breakout set, which was my dream to get ever since I first saw it. I built it at my grandmother's house since my grandfather passed away at the time, so I wanted to stay with her while I built it. So fast forward to some months ago, and a relative of my grandmother went to visit her and decided to bring her 10-year-old son with her. After some chatting, she asked my grandmother if her son can play with it, which the response from my grandmother was no, since I told her when I built it that no one was allowed to touch it if it wasn't for moving stuff, since that Lego is expensive and it means a lot to me. So hearing this information, the entitled mother decides to go ahead and let her son play with it. My grandmother tries to stop her, but it's already too late. An hour later, when my father was picking me up from martial arts, he told me that the kid, while playing with the Lego, apparently accidentally destroyed many parts of it. And when I arrived there, I saw my grandmother trying to fix the Lego set, and many pieces were on the ground or just scattered across the room. After I had to rebuild it, we tried to confront the entitled mother, and she just passed it off like it was nothing, and told us that this is a toy her son should be able to play with. I mean, she never apologized either. To this day, I'm not sure if there are any parts missing around the house, because the damage unfortunately is already done. Okay, this story really is upsetting because as a collector myself, if I spent $200 on some kind of like set of any kind, like I don't care what it is, and then someone's stupid bratty kid started playing with it and then destroyed it, the parents of that idiot kid are absolutely paying me back. And in my opinion, this mom is responsible for the Lego set breaking. Like seriously, you were told repeatedly, no, you cannot touch that. But then you go ahead and say, oh, this is something we should be allowed to play with, which is just so stupid and entitled to say. Like seriously, you have no right over any of this. So yeah, this lady is completely out of her mind and she absolutely is responsible for all of this breaking. And the fact that she's not even owning up to it or even apologizing, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. Am I the jerk for asking a stranger to mute his phone on the bus, as we were literally going to be on a long haul bus for 4 hours straight, resulting in one of the most awkward exchanges I've ever had in my life? Here's what's going on. Okay, so I was just on a long haul bus for about 4 hours straight. This was assigned seating and it was nearly full, so I couldn't switch seats even if I wanted to. The man in the seat next to me had his phone up and was scrolling through Instagram watching reels with the sound on. Not really obnoxiously loud, mind you, but loud enough to hear the sound clearly since I was sitting right next to him. Now, normally I will not do anything, but the thought of potentially 4 hours of this was too much to take. So I asked him if he would mind muting the phone or using headphones. When I said this, he got really upset and told me he'd never been asked to mute his phone in public before. Then he said that he didn't have any headphones and how was he supposed to hear the videos if the sound was off? But I told him that he wouldn't be able to hear them, and then neither would I, which would kind of be the point. He then proceeded to ask me several times why I had not said please when I asked him, but I told him that I had asked him respectfully if he wouldn't mind muting the phone, but I'd be happy to add please now, and that's exactly what he did. He was visibly upset and kept grumbling for a long time, but he did keep the phone muted after that. So am I the jerk here? Did I go a little bit too far? Or was I justified in telling this guy to be quiet? No, there's no way you're the jerk here. This guy is absolutely the jerk for trying to be like, oh, well, why haven't you said please? It's like that last little dig he can possibly make to be like, oh, I'm gonna make you beg for it. And I hate people like that. People like that disgust me, and they are literally the lowest forms of life. Like seriously, anyone who acts like that is so stupid. It's them trying to reclaim some small iota of power that they never have in their real life. So they annoy other people around them just to try and get like a rise out of them. And that's not fair for you, and that's not fair for anybody else on this stupid bus. So no, you're not the jerk, and if anything, you did the right thing. Because if I was on that trip for 4 hours, I would lose my mind as well.
My bosses framed me, then fired me, and I got nuclear revenge. I caused a divorce, a prison sentence, and a handful of deportations. Before we jump into this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on. Hit the bell. This is a long one, but if you stick with it until the end, you will learn how I was framed and fired from my job, accidentally set off a chain reaction that led to a staff overhaul with several managers being fired or moved to other restaurants, the general manager being fired and getting a divorce, and one of the managers being investigated by the FBI and ultimately arrested, as well as several of the workers being deported. Here we go. I used to work at an upscale restaurant owned by a large corporate entity that owns several different restaurant brands. I worked there for about 3.5 years before they eventually fired me, but more on that later. First, I want to give an idea of my role there. My role at that job was a little bit of everything. Since the day I started working there, I took it upon myself to learn as much as possible. I was very persistent with management when I wanted to learn a new department. I had started as a server, but eventually had worked my way into different departments and job titles like carryout, hosting, bartending, bar backing, banquets, catering, and deliveries. My singular goal while working there was to make myself available for as many hours as possible. I was being paid about $12 an hour, though that fluctuated if I was working as a bartender or server and making tips. Eventually, it was noticed by management how I fit best into one of the non-tipped positions. I was so good at it that they decided to try me out as an unofficial supervisor over the team that worked in carryout, catering, and deliveries, as those were all in one department. I knew this was going to ultimately mean a few less hours since I would only be working in one department, so I negotiated with my management to increase my pay by $1.50 per hour. Since I was taking on additional responsibilities, they were satisfied with the pay increase. I wasn't trying to get as much money as possible, I just wanted to be able to pay my bills and still have a little money left over for fun. I was living in the highly taxed city of Chicago, which is already in the highly taxed state of Illinois. So it was pretty difficult to make ends meet and still have money left to enjoy my life. I'm a person of simple pleasures and I can enjoy things for long periods of time, so it didn't take much money to be happy. A video game could hold my attention for several months and sometimes even years. I had a family pet that I brought with me to Chicago, so that counted as an extra expense. Not long after I started this position as the unofficial supervisor, I got a girlfriend. So I was also going out often and spending money on her. With my position and smart budgeting, I was able to afford all of this. The money wasn't an issue, but management had a high turnover rate, so the incoming managers often didn't know what the department entailed or how important hours were to workers of these departments. Eventually, it was noted that our current general manager was going to be fired and replaced. The incoming general manager was supposed to be some rock star when it came to improving restaurants. We looked up his name and found him as the first search result on Google, but the entry wasn't some glowing review of his work ethic or of his impeccable ability to improve the way a restaurant runs. It was actually a mugshot and a police report filed for repeated domestic abuse. This is important later. We'll call him Harvey. Shortly after Harvey came in and started making changes, one of our best managers gave his resignation. She refused to work with him and, like an oracle, told us to expect a lot of harassment harassment, misogynistic comments, and for him to eventually run this place into the ground. Not long after she left, our general manager began replacing our current managers with hand-picked people that he had worked with in the past. Eventually, all but one manager was replaced. That manager was the kitchen manager. We'll call him Frito. Frito had been there since I started working there. He seemed to be something of a chameleon, as in his values and ethics seemed to change depending on who his boss was. Honestly, I sort of applaud his survival instincts, but ultimately see him as a suck-up and a traitor. Harvey never really replaced the manager of our department, so we ran without a lot of oversight. Unless you count me as the supervisor, we didn't constantly have someone breathing down our necks about how things should be done. Our department had some hiccups here and there, but it still ran really smoothly. Since we did not have our own manager, we often had to radio for a manager to come help us out on things that needed a manager card for approval. Frito would always be the one to answer these calls, since the kitchen was the closest to our department. Over time, the new team of managers started to see Frito as the manager of our department as well. However, the hourly team that worked there still saw me as their supervisor. This meant that any time Frito was trying to make changes that would ultimately hurt us, the team relied on me to mitigate those disasters or negotiate with Frito to let us do our jobs the way we had already proven worked really well. Over several months, Frito and I would butt heads dozens of times. He and I were constantly arguing about how important hours were to the workers in this department. He had it in his head that we should be living off of tips like servers, but since most of our orders were carry-out, they came in through Grubhub and Grubhub doesn't tip, we didn't have a lot of deliveries in a day, and the tips we got from those were maybe $10 if we were lucky, but splitting $10 four ways doesn't add up to a lot. It just showed that Frito had no clue what he was talking about. Eventually, we had a meeting with our Harvey, Frito, and all the workers of this department. It was marketed as a chance to voice our grievances and concerns with the changes they wanted to make with no chance of retaliation. So the workers did exactly that. They talked about how Frito was trying to cut the hours even though he isn't our actual manager. When it was brought up that they were attempting to hire someone to be the manager, the team suggested that I take over since I had already been supervising them and running things smoothly for the last several months. I was also the one that management consulted with when writing schedules, as I had an understanding of the days some workers could and couldn't work, depending on their school schedules or family life. I could see the moment it was suggested that Harvey and Frito make the decision on the spot that I had to be gotten rid of. Although they didn't say it, I could see the look they gave each other and instinctively knew that my days at this place were numbered and my job was just going to get the axe one way or another. They made a bunch of promises to us about not cutting hours. They told us that they would stop sending all but one person home early and only leaving one person to clean everything and close up by themselves, as this wasn't a small department and it was simply too much for one person to do alone while still meeting the health and safety standards. They promised that whatever hours we were scheduled for, we would work. We weren't trying to be unreasonable, so we told them that we usually have 3 or 4 people scheduled to work our department. They could cut 2 of them early, but we always needed at least 2 people here to help close properly. The promise was made that they would always have at least 2 closers. However, about a week later, they started sending in all but one person home early again every night. One night they tried to do it while I was scheduled to be the closer, and we had just returned from a massive catering event, and there was an unbelievable amount of cleanup to do for one person. When Fredo came in and tried to send everyone except me home, I stepped up and told him that he was consistently breaking the promise that he had made to us during the meeting. He looked me square in the face and told me to stop complaining about it. And if I was going to keep trying to talk to him about breaking his promises, he could easily find someone who could work my shifts. I quickly realized that this was an assassination attempt on my job. He wanted me to press it further. So I backed off and started cleaning. I ended up having to stay way late, and that meant overtime pay. Anyway, I got a write-up for that since we aren't allowed to work overtime without a manager's approval. When I refused to sign the write-up, pointing out that I had tried to explain to Fredo that I wouldn't be able to clean up all that stuff alone before my schedule ended, I was allowed to leave without signing the write-up, but only because the HR rep that was present at the time wasn't one of Harvey's cronies. Skip ahead to the day that I was fired. It is important to note at this point that I always come into work an hour early. Since we live in Chicago, food was expensive. However, at our job, we were allowed to have as much free soup and bread as we liked. So I would come into work 1 hour early every day so I could have some soup and bread for lunch before my shift. But this day, I walked into the kitchen to get myself some soup. One of the line cooks told me that he had a dish that had been canceled after he cooked it, and Fredo had told him to give it to someone. He assured me Fredo had already already comped it and that it was free to take for whoever wanted it. It just so happened to be my favorite appetizer, so I happily took the free food. Not long after I got to my booth, both Harvey and Fredo approached me and asked me if I had put in a ticket for that food. I told them the line cook had given it to me and said that it was a canceled order that Fredo had already comped. Fredo looked dumbfounded and said that he had no idea what I was talking about. So Harvey told me,
I think you know that's theft. Go ahead and finish your food and then grab my stuff and go. That's the last meal you'll be having here.
I tried to explain to them that I had been given this food by the line cook, but they refused to listen. But by that time, I had gone back to the kitchen with them to talk to the line cook, and he had already gone home for the day. I had no choice but to gather my stuff, say my goodbyes, and head home. On my way out, I told the people working my department that afternoon what had happened, exactly as it happened. They were shocked and angry, but mostly sad to see me go. I decided that on my way out, I would stop by accounting and pick up any tips that may have been dropped off for me that week, just to make sure I didn't get left out of that money. Before heading home, I had a gut feeling to just set my phone to record, and I stuffed it into my pocket with the camera rolling. Although the video was entirely black since it was in my pocket, I did manage to get a pretty muffled recording of Harvey and Fredo's voices through the door discussing how things had gone as planned and that they had been trying to get rid of me ever since the meeting with my department. I knocked on the door and they hushed up before opening it. They asked what I was still doing there and I asked for my tips. They gathered what was in the safe for me and handed it over. Despite my anger rising at what I just heard, I decided not to burn this bridge just yet because perhaps I could nuke it later. I offered a handshake to both managers, thanking them for the opportunity to work there, and left, making sure to pull my phone out of my pocket and record the front of the restaurant with the sign showing its name and logo. Working in a restaurant, you learn to always cover your butt. It's true for most jobs, but something was just telling me that I would need all of this later. If I was being accused of theft, I wanted to be able to prove it wasn't true if it ever came up in future job interviews, which is exactly what happened and where all this started going nuclear. On the train ride home, I sent some messages and made some posts on local groups on Facebook saying that I had just been fired and I was looking for a job as quickly as possible. By the time I got off of my stop, I had already set up an interview for later that day. I was offered a job about 5 minutes into the interview, but after going over the details, it didn't sound like it was for me, so I turned it down. I interviewed a few other places and found one that was a good fit with a hefty pay increase compared to my previous job, and I wouldn't have to deal with customers. It was an auditing job for a logistics company. However, during the interview with the manager of this job, he mentioned he had already called my previous place of employment and spoken with the general manager, Harvey. Harvey told him that I had even been fired for theft. Luckily for me, the manager that I was interviewing with asked me to tell him more about that, and he was willing to let me pull out my phone and find the recording. I asked if the voice in the video was the same as the one he spoke with on the phone. It was. That was enough confirmation for him that I hadn't made a fake video. He listened to the two managers in the video admit that they had set me up and watched to the end when I showed the front of the restaurant complete with the logo and the name. The manager interviewing me, Dean, hired me immediately and asked me to send him the recording. I did. I thought that was the end of it. About 7 months later, after settling into this job quite nicely, HR sent out a welcome all our new team members email, which listed the newest hires, some facts about them, and had pictures of them. They sent these out every time they hired a new round of people. One of them, Thomas, was a former coworker who had worked with me at the restaurant. We had worked at the host stand together, so I was pretty glad to see someone I knew and liked coming onto the team. I sought out his desk and went and said hello and asked why he left the restaurant. He hadn't left willingly. He'd been laid off because the company was under investigation. It had started as a relatively small matter. The corporate entity that owned the restaurant chain had received an email with an attached video. My video that had been filmed from inside my pocket. This was enough cause for corporate to send someone to investigate internally. Thomas was pretty surprised that I hadn't heard anything about it since there had been numerous attempts to get in touch with me. As soon as he said that, I logged into the old email I had used when I first applied for the job at the restaurant. I had at least 24 emails asking me to come in to discuss my employment and termination. I never replied. I just didn't care enough anymore. I'd also changed my number since then, so they hadn't been able to contact me by phone. Thomas continued explaining that before corporate had sent someone, Harvey and Fredo had talked with my department and tried to offer them all a small pay increase to spin corporate a story about how I was incompetent at my job and failed to live up to my duties. The day the corporate auditor showed up, there had been a small exodus of people from my old department. They quit on the spot in front of the lady from corporate, let's call her Audrey, and made sure to rat out Harvey and Fredo before leaving. Strike one for both of them. Strike two came a couple of days after Audrey showed Harvey and Fredo the recording that had kicked all of this off. They denied it vehemently, but there was no mistaking Harvey's voice. It's unique. Not only that, but the video also picked up their voice and mine when we shook hands and had a friendly parting of ways, which is something they had already bragged about to Audrey, thinking that it made them look better that we were able to part on good terms. This wasn't the actual strike two. That came when it was clear they needed to be separated. So Audrey sent Fredo to work at another restaurant owned by our parent company and temporarily demoted Harvey to manager. This tore them apart. They had once been an inseparable evil team, but the pressure of the investigation must have pushed them over the edge. They ended up at each other's throats on Facebook, on a public post on the company page. The post had since been deleted, but Thomas explained it as the following. Fredo had been pictured in the Facebook post on the restaurant page, and Harvey made a passive-aggressive comment about how Fredo shouldn't even be in the picture since he had moved to another restaurant due to misconduct. Fredo saw this comment and said something along the lines of,
"Well, at least people Google my name. I don't show up as the guy who punched his wife."
To which Harvey responded,
"Very funny. From the guy who's cheated on his wife with Janet's sister."
Not her real name, but Janet was the girl that they appointed to officially supervise my old department after they fired me, the unofficial supervisor. Fredo replied to that by saying,
"Like you haven't tried with half the waitresses. They all have stories about you trying to do them."
The post was deleted, but not before it had been seen by Audrey, the auditor. That was officially strike two. Strike three came the next day when Audrey started interviewing the female waitstaff and bartenders, seeing if any of them could confirm that Harvey had tried to make a move on them. All of them were interviewed separately. Several of them had similar stories. Every girl that confirmed Harvey had made a move on them all said that he had offered to be their, quote, sugar daddy if they would send naked wakies of themselves or stay after closing to fool around with him. Harvey was fired, but that isn't the worst of it. Audrey, the auditor, wasn't just some random woman from corporate. She was the old regional manager for this area and had personally hired Harvey's wife as a general manager of another restaurant in the city. So she called up the restaurant Harvey's wife worked at and told Harvey's wife everything she learned from the female waitstaff. We learned later that they had gotten a divorce over him trying to cheat on her after she'd already given him a second chance to change after he hurt her with his fists. I don't know what compelled her to give him a second chance after something like that, but she sure didn't give him a third chance. After firing Harvey, the line cook, who had given me the free food, was interviewed by Audrey. I don't know how it came up, but at some point, he had let it slip that he was an illegal immigrant. She had his file in her hand with an Illinois ID and social security number on file, so this confused her as she pressed him for more information. It turns out that Fredo had some connections and had his own miniature black market going on where he would fake social security cards and IDs made for the illegal immigrants he was hiring at reduced wages. It had been going on for at least 4 years. Needless to say, this was a felony. With the potential PR nightmare that she was likely dealing with, she felt she had no choice but to alert authorities. The local police department enlisted the help of the FBI since some of the evidence led them beyond the jurisdiction of the local police. Fredo was arrested and quickly gave up the names of the people working that sold social security cards and IDs too. I'm not sure if he gave up all of them, but he did name about 14 people, and of those 14, at least half were deported by the time Thomas had been let go. One of them was the line cook that had given me the food that day I was fired. Thomas went on to explain that it had all started with me being fired, but I never sent that recording to corporate. I had only sent it to Dean when he hired me. I asked him about it, and he told me he had sent it to his wife since she's a lawyer. He wanted to see if I had a case to maybe sue my old job since what they did was wrong. But he also remembered that when we had first talked about it, I said I'm not the type of person who likes to make millions off an entire company because of the mistakes of two jerks. But I also said it would be pretty sweet to see them lose their jobs too. So his wife had been the one to send it to the legal team at the corporate headquarters of my old restaurant job. My boss showed it to his wife, who forwarded it to the real head honchos of my old job. They were both just trying to get two scumbags fired for what they did to me, but ended up pulling a thread so long it didn't end until there were harassment accusations, positions, revelations about managers cheating on their wives with girls related to people that they placed in positions of authority, a divorce, mass layoffs, pending investigations, a staff overhaul, an FBI investigation into what can be considered black market dealings of falsified government-issued documents, and at least half a dozen deportations, and probably as many as 14. This one has got to be the most unintentionally nuclear revenge story we've ever seen on the channel so far. He didn't even go after them in a way directly to get them in trouble. All he was trying to do was protect himself by having some sort of evidence so that he could still get a job. This whole thing could have gone another way for the two bosses if they simply did not lie when they got the call about the OP and say that he stole the food. It kind of sounds like the implication here is that the line cook that gave him the food was in on it, even though he's not saying that directly. They do say that they had a plan and it went according to plan. So, I mean, we assume that the line cook is a part of that plan. And if that's the case, they already got what they wanted by having a reason to fire him. Why do they have to go one step further and try and deny him getting a job in the future? That seems personal. But because of that, this whole thing fell down all around them. But let me know what you guys would do down below in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, notifications turned on, and follow the podcast. See you guys in the next one. A Karen slapped and pushed me because I was ignoring her, and then she got what was coming. Don't forget to subscribe with notifications turned on. I am an 18-year-old male, born completely deaf and mute. Also, I am partially blind in my left eye. I live with my sister, who's 28 years old, who has been taking care of me since our parents died. Recently, she got married and went on her honeymoon, so I am on my own for a few weeks. This happened yesterday. Usually, whenever I go out, I am accompanied by my sister due to my disability. But now, she is on her honeymoon and I had to go out alone. There was a new supermarket open in our area and I needed some items, so I decided to go there and grab them. My bad for wearing a red color shirt, almost similar to the employees working there, but if you look closely, you could see that it was not the uniform. I was at the electronics section looking for some batteries when I see an old man struggling to get some DVDs at the top shelf. Since I am tall, I helped him. He thanked me. I can do lip reading and he went on his way. Then I began looking for the batteries. That's when I felt someone grab my left wrist. I turned around and a woman in her late 40s slapped me. She was speaking something, but I couldn't follow as her lips were flapping too fast. However, I was able to catch some words like you, ignore, job, etc. So I signed to her that I am deaf. Apparently this was a wrong move because she became more irate towards the signs. Again, she was yelling something, but I couldn't catch anything. So I grabbed my notebook and start writing that I am deaf and mute. Before I could finish, she grabbed my notebook and pen and threw them away. Then she slapped me again and pushed me to the ground. Luckily, by this time, a store employee came to see what the commotion was about. He saw me on the ground and helped me up. Then he asked me what happened. Before I can sign to him, Karen starts to yell at the employee. I don't know what she said as she was not facing me. After she finished, I signed to an employee that I cannot hear her speak. Fortunately, he understood and explained this to the lady, but she is still not convinced. She tries to assault me again, but I moved away. Then I wrote and showed the employee to call the cops on her. The employee nodded and called the cops. The Karen tried to run away, but the security guard caught her. The police arrived in about 10 minutes. They first talked to the employee who explained the situation about how Karen assaulted me because she mistook me for a store employee. One police officer comes and speaks to me and I understood that he wanted my version of events, so I wrote everything down and showed it to the officer. Then they went to check the CCTV footage. They came back and asked me if I wanted to press charges. I gladly said yes. Karen was then placed in handcuffs and given a free ride in the back of a police cruiser. The manager then explained to me that the Karen thought I worked there and that she became angry that I ignored her. She had been standing on my left side, so obviously I couldn't see her. The store manager offered me a 50% discount on the products. I texted my sister about the events that happened and she was livid. Oh, and did I mention my sister is a lawyer? She told me that she herself will be handling the case and would see to it that Karen would get maximum time. The court date is around 40 days from now. Was I the jerk? This story shows experiencing a Karen from a totally different perspective. I mean, he was completely caught off guard because she was probably screaming at him and he wasn't even aware of her presence until she physically interacted with him via the slap, obviously. I mean, how can you not know when somebody starts doing sign language that is sign language, especially if they're doing it proficient and in a well-practiced way? It's not like he's just throwing up random symbols. This one's pretty sad, and I'm glad that he is actually pressing charges because, as a lot of people point out, sometimes, quite often in a lot of these stories, the OP doesn't press charges, but in this case, his sister is an attorney, so you can't just have people going around slapping and pushing people because they think they are employees. And if they are employees, does that make it right? Of course not, because her whole excuse is totally ridiculous. I thought he was an employee, so therefore he wasn't responding to me, so therefore I acted the way that I did. Nope, that does not fly. So let me know what you would do in this situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Karen versus the lady who is my hero. So for context, I live in a city that was ranked one of the top places in the United States to retire. So an older person asking for small favors from strangers is super common. This happened yesterday. I was shopping at Walmart and a tiny little old lady, who I'm guessing was in her 90s, asked me,
"Excuse me, can you please grab that bag of flour for me?"
I said sure. I grabbed it, put it in the kid seat in front of her cart so the cashier can scan it without having to lift. She thanked me and we chatted for maybe 30 seconds. Then behind me, I hear a different woman's voice who sounded annoyed.
"Okay, you've spent enough time on her. Where is the coffee creamer?"
I turned and said, "What?" As soon as I saw her face, it dawned on me that I am going to have a Karen moment. Also super common in my area. The Karen says,
"It's your job to help out all the customers, not just her."
The old lady says,
He doesn't work here. He's just helping an old lady because his parents raised him right.
There was a noticeable pause. Then the old lady just turned and walked away. In my head, she was strutting off with a half-finished cigarette in her mouth and pixelated glasses, walking into the sunset while the Mandalorian end credit music plays. I'm not sure if this is a you had to be there moment, but I have been laughing ever since. Was I the jerk? Why would anyone get jealous of you trying to help out an elderly person? I mean, everyone is going to be elderly if you live long enough, so why get so annoyed by that? I mean, it's not like the Karen in this situation had been asking and she was ignored. She just didn't like that this person was helping this elderly lady in general. It has nothing to do with the fact that she didn't get any help herself. Anyway, I like the dank meme explanation of how the old lady walked away, but let me know what you would do if you're in this situation down below. Am I the jerk for not asking my mother-in-law nicely to hand over the baby for feeding? Hi, I'm a new mom and I had my son 5 weeks ago. My husband's parents have been staying with us and things have been super overwhelming. My mother-in-law has the habit of taking the baby and refusing to give him back to me. She'd say I'm deliberately ruining her time with him. My son needs feeding every 2 hours and she basically makes me beg to have her hand him over so I could feed him. Last night at 10 p.m. my mother-in-law had my son in her arms while sitting on the couch with my husband and his dad. I was exhausted. The baby started crying and I told my mother-in-law to hand him over to me so I could feed him. She refused and I kept asking. My husband starts talking about what a whiny little girl I was to complain that our son is receiving love and cuddles and how I'm using feeding as an excuse to keep the baby away from his mom. I ignored him and told his mom to hand over the baby and she refused. And she said I needed to wait a little longer. I got angry at this point. My husband said I could take the baby after I asked his mom nicely. This had me seething. I meanly told his mom to stop being annoying and overbearing and hand him over to me. She looked at me shocked and hurt. She handed over the baby and ran into the guest room and my husband gave me a look then followed her and stayed inside to comfort her. He came into the room while I was feeding my son and started yelling about how disrespectful I was to speak to his mom this way and treat her poorly when all she's doing is showing our son more love than I do. I told him how she's been taking the baby for hours and preventing me from feeding him properly. He said that, number one, our son isn't an object for me to act like I own him, and number two, his mom was doing nothing wrong at all, and number three, I should have asked nicely instead of being a bee to his mom and making her cry. I started crying and yelled that I'd go back to my mom's place if his parents stay here any longer. And he yelled back and said, "Shut the front door. You're only acting up because you don't want my parents around. F is wrong with you." Then walked out. I felt terrible thinking that maybe I was rude to his mom, but I also think that I hit my limits here. Am I the jerk for not asking her nicely like my husband wanted? If the baby needs to be fed every 2 hours and the baby needs to be fed, that should be something that's clear amongst everyone in the entire house, regardless of what people want to do with the baby, if they want to cuddle with him or they want to do whatever. I don't know how serious of a rule that is, but if it is something that must be done, it's got to be done. And the whole entire purpose of the parents being there is to help them out during the early days of taking care of the baby, but it sounds like it's making the whole process worse for the OP, the mother here. It sounds like she would have an easier time with the baby if they just weren't there, so them being there to help is very counterproductive from the sounds of it. The insults the husband gave the OP, the wife here, here are very specific. He calls her a whiny little girl, and how dare he complain that his son is receiving love and cuddles. It sounds like there's weird layers of resentment that have already brewed way before this story even started. One of the top responses says your husband is prioritizing his mother's emotional wants over your 5-week-old baby's physical needs. Get out now. This is only going to escalate. He's already shown his own child isn't his top priority. That is not normal. That is terrifying. But do you think it's terrifying? Let me know what you would do if you're in this situation down below. And jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for embarrassing a lunch thief at work? I've been getting some flack for this, so I really want to clear this up. I recently started a job where I work in a small studio. There are several others in the building. Think open plan office with sections assigned to each studio. The person I had an altercation with doesn't work from my studio, just FYI. I eat lunch around 1-ish, and most people eat at 12. I came down early to eat at 12. I made coffee, and while at the counter, noticed my Tupperware in the sink was empty. Imagine my surprise when I turned around and saw a man I didn't know sitting down at the table with my food on his plate. He had just stuck it in the microwave. Acting rashly, I was mad. I sat down next to him and said, "Hey, that looks good. Mind if I try it?" Then before waiting for an answer, I yanked the plate away from him and snatched his fork out of his hand. He just blinked in shock, as did the other people there as I started eating. He then quite loudly asked what I was doing, and I replied, this was actually much better when I first cooked it. It probably lost some flavor in the fridge. He caught on quickly that it was my food and went a little bit red. I then asked him where he got the gall to steal someone else's lunch, and then asked them what they were doing when they took it back. He stuttered out some nonsense about not knowing it was mine, and I replied with, "Well, you knew it wasn't yours, right?" He just mumbled something like an apology, and I said, "It's no problem." It was nice that he warmed it up for me at least, in an admittedly jerky tone. And then he just got up and left, and the people there just stared in silence. Two of the silent watchers, maybe his mates, I don't know, told me that I was rude to him, and that there had been nicer ways to go about it. I told them to think about how they'd feel if someone ate their food before saying they should focus on their lunch and I'll focus on mine. Well, it's been a little awkward at lunch since then, and I have the impression a few people are talking trash about me at work now. Maybe I could have been a little nicer, sure, but I don't think I was wrong. But please tell me, was I the jerk? I think these type of situations always boil down to, is he stealing food out of necessity and just somebody that needs help and doesn't know how to communicate that? Or is it somebody who's stealing food out of laziness and he could easily get his own food or make his own food or bring his own food and he just chooses not to and starts to eat other people's food? Neither one of them give him a free pass to do whatever he wants, but in one case, the circumstances are vastly different. Because if he's able to communicate that, then maybe other people can help him get back on his feet if that is the case. But most of the time, it's the laziness option between the two. At least most of the time in these stories. And if that is the case in this story in particular, I don't think there's anything wrong with how the OP handled this. He didn't go totally out of his way to embarrass this guy or start going out and telling people. He just handled his business, did what he had to do in the moment, and this is probably never going to happen again. But let me know what you think. Jerk or not a jerk, and why down below. Am I the jerk for what I told my mother-in-law when she asked to be in the delivery room? My husband, who's 33 years old, and I, 30 years old, are expecting a baby boy. We're barely catching up with preparation and getting everything ready. His mom, kind of a busybody type, but can be helpful at times, invited us for dinner, and she said she has an important request to make. She brought her request up at the dinner table and blatantly said that she wanted to be in the delivery room with me when I give birth. I was taken aback by her request. I really thought it had something to do with the nursery or diaper brand. I said I was sorry, but only my mom and my husband will be there. She made a face, got quiet for a while, then brought it up again. Just kept pushing, saying that she is as much of a grandmother as my mom and that she just wanted to be there for support and get the opportunity to see her grandbaby's first moments. My husband sided with her. I just stared at her and said, "It's all right. You can have the opportunity to be in the delivery room when it's your son who's giving birth." Everyone stopped eating and my mother-in-law left the table in an instance. My husband had me get up, although I wasn't finished with dinner, but he said we should leave. In the car, he lost it on me. What brain cell made me think it was a good idea to tell his mom that? I told him his mom kept pushing after I'd already given her an answer. Still, he said this was the most messed up thing he's ever heard me say. I replied that I was just frustrated and didn't mean to hurt her feelings and cause issues. He argued that if I don't want issues, then I should stop making it difficult and just say yes to his mom's request. He then ranted about how it's his son too, and then said if his mom isn't allowed in there, then he won't be there too. Now, I don't know if he really meant this or if he just said this in the heat of the moment, but it had me fuming. He's been ignoring me when I try to talk to him and act like I'm not in the room. I think I might have gone too far and created tension by responding inappropriately. So, am I the jerk for what I told my mother-in-law when she asked to be in the delivery room? Man, this is a tough one. Ultimately, it's her choice, no matter what. But the thing that's out of her control, beyond the choice, is the reaction of others to her choice. So how the mother-in-law is going to treat her from this point forward. And now what's been revealed about how the husband already does treat her because of this. The husband is trying to weirdly strong-arm his own wife by saying that if his mom can't be there, he's not going to be there too. When the OP probably very clearly wants the husband to be there for the birth of their child. A lot of people in response to this thought that this is an actual entire deal breaker for the whole relationship, the entire marriage. A lot of times with responses to stuff like this, there's a solution, but on this one, a lot of people went straight for divorce. In fact, some of the top comments said, the reality is that your mother-in-law just did you a favor here because your husband siding with her is showing issues in your marriage and the difficulties you're going to face when it comes to decisions about your pregnancy or your child. I would tell him if he doesn't come to the delivery room when I give birth and if he's not supportive of my decision concerning my body, our marriage will be over. And he shouldn't bother coming to the hospital at all because he will have to wait until I go back to my parents to meet our son. Go to a lawyer and prepare for a divorce just in case and try to get an appointment with a therapist to help you through all of it. To which was followed up with another one saying OP needs to prepare herself for the worst outcome. Mother-in-law literally ambushed her by making that request in front of everyone and not taking no as an answer. There are a million reasons why OP just wants her mother and husband in the delivery room. I agree with your advice. OP should seek a lawyer and be prepared. They want to play like kids, but someone needs to remind them all no means no and actions require consequences. Yikes. So let me know if you think that this whole situation is grounds for divorce or not, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. A Karen made the worst mistake of her life by screaming at a drill sergeant's wife. Here's what happened. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube with notifications turned on, and let's jump straight into it. Before I start this story, I have to tell you about my husband. I am French, and we met while he was on vacation in Europe. One thing led to another, and now I live in Ohio with him. He is a hard-working gentleman, an Army veteran of 2 conflicts, and though he has a very serious and almost hostile-like demeanor, think of a resting jerk face, but angrier and on a guy, he is a big teddy bear, quick to make a joke or pull a prank and easy to laugh. He is also very protective of me. We were out getting groceries last week, and as we were checking out, I was bagging up all of our stuff because the store now requires that you bag your own goods if you bring your own bags. No big deal. He pays, and I stay to help a very elderly lady behind him bag her groceries and put them in her cart. He had helped her unload them, and we offered to help her put them in her car. She shuffles away from the register, and I move to follow. As I turn away, I hear behind me,
Where the hell do you think you're going?
I turned to see a very angry woman glaring at me. I told her politely that I didn't work at the store and I had just helped the elderly lady to be polite and that I was now leaving with my husband to go home. I had never met an American Karen before, so I thought this would be the end of it. I turned to walk away and feel a vice grip on my arm.
Don't be lazy. Just do your job and help pack my groceries.
I didn't even have time to respond. She had barely finished speaking when my husband wrenched her hand off me and was yelling in her face. This was the first time in the 10 years we've been together that I saw the old soldier come out. His nose might have been 3 inches from hers and his voice was loud and frightening.
Who the F do you think you are? How dare you put your hands on my wife? She told you she doesn't work here. Are you too effing stupid to understand simple English? Go pay for your things, bag your own groceries, and don't you dare utter another word.
The silence after that was intense. A store full of people could hear a pin drop. The look on her face wasn't even angry. It was pure terror. She shuffled back to her aisle and waited for the cashier. My husband went to the old lady and said, I am so sorry you had to hear all that, ma'am. I apologize if my language was was offensive. I hope you will still allow us to help you load your groceries into your car. It was surreal. Like he had just flipped on a switch and then flipped it back off. Also, we got chased down by the store manager who suggested we could be banned because of the yelling and the bad language. My husband shrugged and said they had better ban the Karen too for assaulting me, and that there are other grocery stores in town. We just go to this one because it's close. Turns out we didn't get banned. Was he the jerk? It looks like everything changed here the second that this Karen put her hand on the OP. When she was yelling at the OP by saying, "Don't be lazy, just do your jobs," the husband seemed like he knew it was just words. But when she went up and grabbed the OP, his wife, that's when all this went down. Someone had a mini store that was sort of similar to this who was a grocery store manager, and there was a Karen that was very rude to a couple. They put her in her place, and then the Karen asked to speak to the manager and said that this person needed to ban them for harassing her. In my case, he says, I had seen and heard everything. To keep her happy and keep her from calling corporate on me, I walked out behind them and apologized to them for having to deal with Karen. They were really nice and wished me good luck dealing with people like her. The Karen was very happy. She thought she really got them banned. A few weeks later, she's now the one banned for theft. Finally caught her on camera. So with a mini story like that, I wonder if in the original story, the reason why the employee threatened to ban them for their language and their yelling was just to try and calm the situation and make it seem like they weren't taking sides in the whole scenario, especially if they saw what happened and they couldn't do anything about it. Let me know if you guys have ever seen a situation like this before in your life, or maybe you were the one in the situation. If so, you can let me know in the comments or submit a full-length story in the link in the description. Jerk or not a jerk, and why? Would I be the jerk for going to my friend's unwedding reception? My buddy Kalen was supposed to get married to his fiance Kaylee next weekend. They were together 4 to 5 years and seemed like a perfect couple, in love, happy, always doing sweet things for each other, etc. We always joked that they were relationship goals. So everyone was shocked when Kaylee called us last week frantically asking if we knew where Kalen was. He just didn't come home from work that day. No warning, no nothing. I don't know what all went down, but a couple of days ago, Kaylee makes a post that the wedding is off, but there's still going to be an unwedding party / reception because it's too late to get most of the refunds. Immediately after, Kalen starts messaging all of us upset, asking if we're going. Apparently, he was going through something but wanted to stay together, and Kaylee broke up with him instead. Now he's devastated. He's furious that we're thinking of partying when that will just be a hard day for him and he needs our support. Our friends are split. The way that I see it, I already took time off for the wedding. Our cabins are already booked, and I don't know if we can get refunds. We already bought new clothes for the wedding, and we were looking forward to a romantic weekend away in the mountains. It sucks that Kalen is heartbroken, but he kind of brought it on himself. Plus, Kaylee has upgraded the cash bar to an open bar. But my other friends think that since we're his friends first, we should be there for him when he's going through a hard time, even if it's his own fault, and that we'll be responsible if he harms himself while we're away partying and drinking. They say we should use the time off to do something nice with him instead. So, would I be the jerk for going to my friend's unwedding reception? We don't know exactly what Kalen was going through, but it must have been pretty serious if he just completely no-called, no-showed on his entire marriage to upset Kaylee, the fiance wife, future wife, to get to the point that she wants to end the entire marriage over it. I mean, people do have hard times they go through, and they do need support for a lot of things, but it seems like the crux of this is that he didn't communicate at all with Kaylee about why he didn't come home from work in general. Kaylee might have assumed that maybe he's having an affair or something else is going on, when really Kalen, the future husband, could just be really down and needed help but didn't know how to communicate it. It's hard to know because there's no mention whatsoever of what exactly happened there, other than the fact that Kalen didn't call or show up after work that day. Maybe part of the reason beyond the heartbreak and the struggle that Kalen's going through that would upset him over this whole thing is that the assumption is that everyone here would be partying at least partially on his dime as well, because it probably wasn't just Kaylee that paid the cost of the reception, all these other things, because in most of these situations, both people pay for part of it. It is kind of asking a lot of your friends, though, to spend all this money, have them look forward to it, and then tell them not to go to the thing that's going to happen, whether they're there or not. So let me know what you would do in this situation. Would you go to this unwedding party that you've already paid all of your fees for, got new clothes and everything, or would you forget about the money that you spent and stay back with Kalen? Let me know down below, jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for telling a first date at the the end of our date that he couldn't stay with me, thus essentially leaving him nowhere to go at 11 p.m. in a small town. Tonight I went on my first internet dating app meeting/date. I am new to meeting people online, and all I knew was that I did not plan on letting anyone I just met know where I live. So I had told this guy who I've been messaging for only 4 days that I didn't allow strangers to stay at my place, and I thought that was that. Well, when I arrived to have a drink with this man, he mentioned staying at my place, and I reiterated that I do not allow strangers to stay with me, and I also do not have a spare bed. I assumed he must have had other arrangements because he didn't push the issue. Come to 11 o'clock at night, I have had a delightful time with this guy, but it's late and I am tired, so I let him know I'm about to make tracks. Then it got awkward as I realized he thought that he was staying with me. I apologized to him and explained it wasn't him. It was a blanket rule I have for all men, all people actually. I will not take them to my home until I know them. He seemed disappointed and I just changed the topic. I called my taxi and went home. So I think I might be the jerk here because obviously there was a terrible miscommunication. English is his second language and perhaps I gave him the wrong impression, and because of this, a guy may be sleeping in a park of a small rural Australian town when I should have been more stern about the seriousness of my no stranger policy. I also could have tried to help him find an accommodation, but I chose not to. Should he have expected a place to stay, and am I the jerk for telling my first date at the end of our date that he couldn't stay at my place? Who randomly has the expectation to stay over the night at somebody's house that they just met for the first time and is counting on that to be the case? That seems totally random. I can't imagine somebody would just have that assumption no matter the fact that there was already a conversation where the OP told him, no, you can't. This is my policy. I mean, is there something the OP is leaving out here? Did he say he needed a place to stay? Was there something that was like that was brought up? Because if that's the case, maybe that's why she specifically, explicitly stated that he cannot stay at her place, but yet still thought he was going to. I don't think the English as a second language excuse really makes a lot of sense here if it didn't get in the way of other forms of communication and only affected this specific staying over part of it. But let me know what you think down below. Is this weird? Is this normal? And jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for wanting to move my husband into a home on his dime? I'm a 48-year-old female, and my husband, who's 66, and I were married 23 years ago. Yes, there is a large age gap. He had a wife and children, and he left her for me. There were problems in that marriage that I won't touch on, and he and I have been happy. His children are 38, 36, and 32. 2 men and 1 woman. And I have never gotten along very well with them, and the relationship between him and his children have been strained. This is just the dynamic and not what I'm here to be judged on. He was the breadwinner of my household, and I did some part-time work, but that was about it. We lived comfortably even after his retirement 5 years ago. My husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's about a year ago. He's been getting worse very quickly, and while I've done my best, his care is becoming too much for me to the point where I've made the difficult decision that I cannot provide what is needed. I've looked through a lot of options, and I've chosen to move him into a home with specialized care for his condition. I did tell his children, who knew of his diagnosis, about my choice, since I felt they had a right to know. Now they are furious with me, claiming it's unfair for me to do that, telling me that I wrecked their home only not to keep my marriage vows of in sickness and in health to him, and saying that I've always been a gold digger, and my choice to use his money to send him away proves that. Obviously, it hurt. I vented to a friend of mine who told me that she did think it was cold of me to stop caring for him, as he will most likely decline more rapidly. Now, I'm starting to feel bad for the choice that I've made. My friend suggested that I should make the commitment of taking a class or something to learn how to care for him, and agreed with his children that I signed up for this when I got with a married man. Am I the jerk for wanting to move my husband into a care home on his own dime? For more information regarding finances, read this comment that says, "It is incredibly expensive to pay for long-term care for an Alzheimer's patient. It is also extraordinarily difficult for one person alone to care for someone like this at home. The care costs thousands and thousands of dollars to the care facility every year to make sure her husband is safe, clean, fed, happy, given therapy, and is monitored 24/7 to keep him safe. I wonder if the husband's adult children are upset that any potential inheritance they might have had is going towards their father's care. Also, the people who want to throw in sickness and in health in OP's face are not understanding that it is close to impossible for one person to monitor and provide adequate care for an Alzheimer's patient. OP made the most expensive but safest choice for her husband." The OP herself then elaborates by saying, "I am using his money to ensure that he gets the best care possible because insurance will not cover everything. Even if I went back to work, I would not make enough on my own. I'd like to say that I am all on my own regarding care for him. The children will not see him, nor do they want to be involved. The relationship is strained due to the divorce and remarriage. Some people do not like that I did not include a paragraph explaining how much I love my husband and how I personally feel towards the children and him and the situation. I chose to respect the word count and try to be as objective as possible. I've been happily married for 25 years and he is truly the love of my life. I want to care for him, but I cannot provide the 24/7 care necessary, and the layout of our house is not suitable for him. It has been determined that it is easier on him to deal with a full-time transition team at home than it is to move him with me and then try to tackle his regression and messed up routine. I also had a lot of questions of why I haven't looked into other options or if I spoke to the doctors. We had a very terrifying elopement incident which ended in some violence towards emergency services. This has really triggered this move to a care home. I am looking for the best possible care for him, and the doctors have been wonderful in support and assistance. They have assured me that I am not abandoning him by getting him the care that he needs. People ask, will I visit? The answer is that if COVID policies permit, the answer is yes. I will make a point to visit often until it is no longer helpful, which I have been warned can happen. So the whole thing seems like she got a lot of backlash because people are assuming that she just didn't want to do any work to take care of her husband at all. But it sounds like through all this extra explanation through the edits and the updates and these other comments, that really it's just not possible for one person to handle all this stuff when he's getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't think that was really conveyed in the original post, which is why all these updates had to be made. Hopefully what that comment said isn't true, because it would be pretty sad. And that is that maybe the underlying reason why the kids are so upset is that their inheritance is now being all totally spent on caring for him in his Alzheimer's condition. And by the end of it, there won't be anything left for them. I mean, maybe the kids have a misunderstanding of how Alzheimer's is to begin with as well, and that the wife, the OP, is just being lazy by not caring for her husband herself, and thus saving all these hundreds and thousands of dollars or however much it costs instead of going into treatment, but to be saved for their inheritance. We don't really know. This is obviously a very bleak scenario, and it doesn't sound like there's any chance of this getting better. It sounds like it's continuing to get worse. But if you were in this very unfortunate situation, what would you do? And jerk or not a jerk, and why? An entitled Karen goes berserk and threatens to report me if I don't do free slave labor exactly how she wants it done, exactly when she wants it done. To give some backstory, I am a 19-year-old in community college living in a small neighborhood in my parents' old small house. I mow my lawn, which is reasonably small because there is no HOA and I can't hire anyone to do it for me. Also, the sun and exercise is great. 3 of my neighbors are either elderly, don't have the time, or don't own mowers of their own, so I mow their reasonably small lawns for free at the same time I mow mine. I live in a very close neighborhood, so while I may do mowing, another neighbor may power wash driveways or some such. Let's just say I mow out of the goodness of my heart and get compensated with a bottle of cold water afterward by 2 out of the 3. The third, however, is where the malicious compliance begins. The third neighbor is a very stubborn 40-something-year-old lady who, number 1, owns her own mower, number 2, can afford to hire someone to do it for her, and number 3 is very specific about how and when her lawn gets done, even though it's free. Reason 3 pisses me off the most. Honestly, because she does not let me use my mower or fix hers. Seriously, it's like she's punishing me for volunteering to help her, and this mower is a piece of junk. The blades are dull, yet she doesn't let me sharpen them. It's clogged full of grass, she doesn't let me clean it, and yet every time I ask if I can tidy up, she snaps,
"Quit wasting time and just get the job done now!"
She is mean, entitled, and doesn't care that I do 4 lawns in one day. Even on days where I can't mow the lawn because I'm feeling under the weather or I'm just too busy with school, she threatens to call the, quote, HOA, again, we don't have one, to report me for running a business without a license unless I get the lawn mowed. I'm pretty sure of the 3 things, you don't need a license to mow a lawn. It's not a business since I don't ask for money or compensation, and that she doesn't have the number for the homeowners association that doesn't exist. Honestly, I should have stopped volunteering to mow her lawn a long time ago, but I just never had the heart, except for last week. It's rainy, it's July, it's very hot, and on the morning I was scheduled to mow, it poured like crazy. Now, those of you who mow lawns know you can't, or rather shouldn't, mow your lawn directly after it rains for various reasons. And my neighborhood is pretty shaded up, so it takes at least a day to dry up. So around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm just relaxing and enjoying the free time when out of nowhere, there is a frantic smashing of a fist on my door. I would call it pounding, but it honestly wasn't. Lo and behold, it's stubborn lady looking annoyed as ever. As soon as I crack my door, the yelling starts, and I'm almost blasted back as she tries to push my door open. I couldn't make out most of what she was saying, but I did hear the words lazy, brat, millennial thrown in there. I'm pretty laid back and used to dealing with angry adults, so this doesn't irk me all that much, but when she pushed the door open, that started to piss me off.
Why isn't my lawn mowed? I need it mowed right now!
Ma'am, it rained pretty heavily today, and I can't...
I don't give a care what the weather is like. You better get your butt out there. I have company coming over.
Ma'am, I am not going to do your lawn. I didn't even mow my own lawn today. Please, stop harassing me. And now the stubborn lady with her teeth clenched and her neck veins popping said,
If you don't mow the lawn right now, so help me God, I will report you like I should have done a long time ago.
Now, while I could have argued, which I don't like to do, I had thought of a better plan. I said, all right, ma'am, may I at least use my mower?
No damn way, you snot-nosed kid. I want my lawn exactly the way I like it.
My plan was in action. So grabbing her lawnmower and seeing that her and her company's freshly rained on fancy cars were right along the edge of the lawn, I started to mow. I only got about halfway through before the mower completely shut down due to clogging and the sheer dullness of the blade. But it all worked out. Later that day, after a nice shower and a meal, I heard the reaction to my compliance, which was, to my amusement, the insane screaming and ranting about why the lawn was only half done and every car was caked in mud and grass. I only got in trouble with her as none of my neighbors liked her very much, and of course, she threatened again to report me to the non-existent HOA, to which I said, go ahead. And then, once and for all, I told her that I refused to mow her lawn ever again. This lady, this Karen, really thought that this guy, the OP, was just going to be waiting for her beck and call to do free labor for her whenever she wanted, however she wanted, at all times. It makes me wonder what experiences have happened in this lady's life where she thinks that that is normal. Has that happened in the past before? Had she lived somewhere previously where there was somebody that was just doing totally free labor for her for this extended amount of time that she could bark at and demand to go do what she wanted them to do whenever she wanted them to do it? I mean, why else would she think that this is normal unless she had some sort of referential experience in the past where that was normal? And if that's the case, what was that situation? What was that entire arrangement? The only thing I could possibly think is maybe when she was a kid, she had rich parents and that's how she treated people that worked for her parents. But wow, this is malicious compliance in full effect. Let me know if you guys think jerk or not a jerk, and what would you do if you were in this situation down below. 2 male Karens try to humiliate me, their waiter, in front of a group of 40 people. So I respond by serving them a sweet, sweet dish of malicious compliance. I used to wait tables at an upscale restaurant that was known to be the place to have your holiday or office parties. Great money if you got the right group. The menus were preset, the wine and liquor was preset, and it was all auto-graded at 18%. All of it was in the contract the host signed pre-event. Usually the host would make themselves known fairly early on so you would know who to talk to if there was an issue and who to give the check to at the end of the night. One night, I am splitting a party of 30 to 40 people with another server. This event had top tier food and mid-level wine and booze. Very nice. A small group of people, between 5 and 6, arrive a bit ahead of the schedule. 2 guys and 3 or 4 women. Not a problem, since it's actually nicer if they slowly roll in so we can get drinks started. I walk over, introduce myself and the other waiter, and ask for drinks. Now, this was back in the early 2000s and Chads weren't a thing yet, but the 2 two guys were the chattiest chads. If they could have popped their collars in their suits, I'm sure these guys would have found a way. Super Chad number 1 said,
Hey, me and my bro, we're gonna start with a round of Johnny Walker Blue, and these ladies are gonna have an expensive red wine.
Super Chad number 2, turning to the girl, said, once you have Johnny Blue, you just can't drink anything else. It changes you, bro. I said, if you like, I can put those on a separate tab. The event contract has Johnny Walker Black, but not Blue. The red wine selection for tonight is a less expensive wine. Super Chad 1 said,
This is our party. Just give me what I ordered and don't question me again.
Super Chad 2 said, who do you think you are? You're just some waiter. We have MBAs. Just get us our drinks, kid. I walk over to the other waiter and tell him we are in for a hell of a night, but the check should be nice. For those that don't know, Johnny Walker Blue is 3 to 4 times the cost of Johnny Walker Black. So one round of drinks for these people is over $100. The whole night goes exactly as we thought. Nothing was good enough. The appetizers were crap. The food was horrible. Not enough bread. Too many bread plates, the drinks were taking too long. Why do some people have food and not others? It's 40 people, man. It takes a minute to get that much food out. To make it worse, the Chads and company are all over the place, moving seats and making others move so they can talk to who they want. This makes serving hell because we did everything by seat number. Surprisingly, most of the table was normal, not entitled people who knew that waiters are people too. They were impressed by the food and graciously ordered the drinks that were in the contract. One older gentleman at the other end of the table from the Chads apologized for their behavior by saying, they may have fancy degrees and good jobs, but you can't teach class. I love that guy. Finally, they are winding down, and after drinking almost a full bottle of Johnny Blue along with all the other food and drinks, they have a very hefty check, and the other waiter and I are excited to get paid. We start picking up the dessert plates and asking for last drink requests. The nice older guy at the end of the table says to bring him the check, not wanting any more interaction with the Chads than necessary. I bring it to him. I tell him I can take care of it whenever and go about clearing the table. A few minutes later, he calls me over and says, maybe there was a mistake in ringing up the drinks. There's almost $600 of Johnny Blue, when in the contract that I signed, it only included Johnny Black. And there are some single glasses of wine that are different from what we agreed upon. Me, no mistake, sir. That is what was ordered and drank. He is being awesome and I felt bad. He then said, why did you give the drinks to them when we clearly had a contract? Me, I apologize, sir. They told me this was their party and since I was just a waiter to shut up and do as I was told. So I did. I'm sorry. I took them at their word. I point them out and he calls them over. What follows was the singularly greatest chew out I have ever been witness to. He goes on about how he was doing something nice, but apparently that wasn't enough, about how horrible their behavior was that night and how he is ashamed for them. But my favorite line was how you see a person's true colors and how they treat people that work for them, and they had shown theirs. Then he called me back over and said, apparently this was my party. Guess I was wrong. This is their party, and now they will be taking care of the check. Oh, and up the gratuity to 25%. You earned it. He turns around and walks off, leaving the Chads with the check. All in all, it was about $3,000. I have never seen two grown men look so defeated. Was I the jerk? So where do these two guys think that the money was going to come from to buy these drinks? Did they just assume that the guy would be totally fine with it? Or were they not as familiar with this different type of drink as they thought they were with the price increase that would come with getting the more fancy version over the regular one? The OP said it was 3 to 4 times the cost of the one that was on the contract. And it's pretty unbelievable how often you see people treating waiters poorly or anyone in service for no reason. It's just because they can. They think they can get away with it and they act totally terrible like this and demeaning when it's not even in response to the waiter being rude to them or anything. It's just right out the gate. But it is cool that the old man did increase the gratuity up to 25% because 25% of $3,000 is $750. I assume that's for the total meal and not just one half because there were two waiters here. But either way, whether it's $750 or half of that when they split it up into two, that's a good chunk of money for one single meal. So anyway, let me know what you would do if you were the waiter in this situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that he can't date younger girls and then get upset about my budget apartment? So I recently got together with a guy from my hobby. He asked me out first and I had some doubts that we'd work together as a couple because of the age difference. He's 35 years old and I'm 22 years old. So in my apartment, since it's an old house that was originally a single family house, there isn't much soundproofing and the doors creak when people move. I've gotten used to the sound of the guy upstairs getting up at 4 a.m. since he starts work at 5, and the sound of the girl's apartment to either side of me watching telenovas till midnight, taking work calls all day, and having friends over on weekend nights. I know when I play music or have friends over, some of the sound leaks through the walls, so I never get upset about hearing my neighbors because it goes both ways. So, when my boyfriend started coming over more often, he had complaints about the neighbors, which put me in an awkward place. He wanted to go speak to them or have me text them, and I said no. For example, one of the early times he stayed over, we went to bed around 10. He wanted me to ask my neighbor to turn down her TV. I said she didn't have it that loud and she turns it off at midnight anyway. At 4 a.m., he got very irritated with my neighbor upstairs getting up and cooking breakfast. I said he would be done by 5 a.m. because that's when his shift starts. At 7 a.m., he was still trying to sleep in, and the neighbor on the other side had some work calls that he said he couldn't sleep through. I offered him earplugs and he said he couldn't sleep with them in either. He wanted me to ask her to quiet down. He had similar comments every time he heard someone else in the building just living their life, especially if he was in bed. I got frustrated with my boyfriend and said, you can't expect to date a hot 22-year-old like me and not want to deal with a 22-year-old's living situation. I don't know if you realize, but this is a normal apartment for someone my age. Hell, my neighbors are pretty great. Nobody's throwing loud parties on work nights, nobody's having screaming fights, and nobody's having babies. The hot young part was in sarcastic air quotes because those were his words, not mine. He got irritated and asked why I was bringing age into it, and I said it's because he can't both want someone so young and also want someone with house kind of money. And he was being so out of touch with how normal people live in their 20s. He got really irritated with me bringing age into it, and even more annoyed when I'd respond to his neighbor complaints in the future with, okay, boomer, or tell him that if he wanted me to have a rich person apartment, then he could pay for it. So, am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that he can't date younger girls and then get upset about my budget apartment? There's actually an update because a lot of people said, well, why don't you just stay at his house? It's not possible for me to get to his house on my own because I don't have a car and the buses don't go that far into the suburbs. So that would mean him driving 30 minutes from his house in the suburbs to pick me up and an extra 30 minutes to drive me to his house, then an hour round trip early in the morning to get me home in time for work. It's a lot easier for him to visit me in the city. So this whole situation just seems so strange with the way he's acting, making it seem like it's totally crazy to live in a situation with no soundproofing. I mean, I feel like most people listening to this video right now probably have lived in a situation where they have to hear somebody through the walls. I know I have. I think that's a pretty common thing to have to live with if you've ever lived in a regular apartment complex in general. One of the first things I thought about this story was it sounds like one of those guys that is living a completely separate life. I heard this story about a guy who told his girlfriend that he was in the CIA and she believed it for years and years and he couldn't tell her where he was or anything. And it turned out he just had an actual wife and a family that he was going to when he was going to work at his CIA job. But it turns out in this case, for this story, that might actually be true because the final update to this whole thing says, I Googled his property records for his house and he co-owns it with a woman who shares his last name. Holy smokes. I don't know if she's his wife or his ex-wife or something, but I'm out of here. I'm honestly freaking out right now. Maybe it's his wife, maybe it's his ex-wife, or it even could be his sister, for example, but him being married and acting like this in the situation where he can't go to her house for some reason would make a lot of sense. So let me know what you would do if you're in this situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My mother-in-law completely slanders me and goes for the nuclear option, and this is what happened. So my husband is military and getting ready to deploy. We got an offer from his mom to take care of our dog while he was deployed so I could still work and not have to worry about the dog being alone, as he was only 3 months old at that time. We thanked her and told her the dates he was going to be gone, which was early November to beginning of January. We told her she didn't have to do this, but we were extremely thankful. My mother-in-law is doing ketamine treatments for a major depressive disorder, anxiety, and bipolar, and isn't supposed to be traveling for several days afterwards. She took it upon herself to leave immediately after one. She insisted on coming down 6 weeks early, even though we told her we could bring the dog to her. She told us no, she needed the trip. We say okay, and she starts driving. She lives 4 states away. She gets here and immediately starts criticizing us. One of my best friends is a veterinarian and has been training dogs for most of her adult life, so I go to her for advice where my own knowledge fails. The first day my mother-in-law was here, she brought a self-feeder and a waterer, both the extra large 4-gallon ones. She bought him a giant Kong toy that was bigger than his head and filled it with peanut butter, something we told her we weren't giving him yet since both his parents are allergic. He chipped a tooth on that toy because it's rated for adult aggressive breeds, not baby huskies. She said she bought him all that stuff because the dog girl at Petco recommended it for him. Both bowls are bigger than him. An adult human doesn't need 4 gallons a day, and a puppy will just eat and drink until they're sick. They normally don't know any better, but regardless, she filled both while we were at work and gave him free reign of the house. Normally, we have the dog gates up so he doesn't destroy everything. She took everything down, gave him more than his weight in food and water. We came home to a torn up house, pee, poop, and vomit everywhere. When we got home, we got berated for how we were treating him. She was rocking back and forth in the chair, literally crying about how we were abusing him and that he didn't have enough toys, food, or water, and that we should never crate train a dog. He has an entire toy box with a wide variety of toys, bowls appropriate for his size, and while we are crate training him, it's rated for his full size, not for his current size, so it's giant. He doesn't get left alone in there, and the door doesn't shut. He has a bed, toys, and a rawhide in there. I was mad, but I didn't want to be rude, so I excused myself politely and stepped out for some air. When my husband finally came outside after being yelled at, I told him I was no longer comfortable with her taking the dog and that we would work something else out. He agreed and asked them to go back to the hotel, and we could talk in the morning. Well, morning came. We went out for breakfast and a walk in the park. While we were sitting eating breakfast, his mom brought up his dad's career. My husband tried to include me in the conversation, but I mentioned that I don't really know enough to contribute. Bless him, he tried to change the subject to include me, but my mother-in-law kept changing it back, and we were both clearly uncomfortable. We weren't that far from home, so I told him I was going to walk back so he could spend time with his mom. I texted him on my way back to ask if that was okay, or if he wanted me back, because I didn't want to be rude, but he never answered. He doesn't check his phone while he's with his mom because she gets furious if he's focused on anything other than her while they're talking. She had her phone out the entire time. They eventually said goodbye, and before he got home, a 3-minute drive from the park, he got a text from his mom calling me all sorts of things. I don't have a picture of that one, but I'm sure he would let me get one when he gets home from work. She told him that I was insecure for taking time away from them when they came all the way up here, called me a bee, a spoiled brat, and all sorts of other things. So of course he showed me in text because he's a good partner. I was hurt and angry, and I texted her a long response. She didn't respond to me. She called my husband saying she didn't realize and half apologized. I didn't mean to be hurtful. I'm sorry she was upset by my concern. I accepted it for the sake of sanity and moved on. She told us she didn't want to take the dog anymore anyway, but would pay for boarding and just wanted to have a good visit now. We told her she didn't have to pay for anything, that we would find someone, but agreed to the good day. We went out, spent the day together, had lunch, and had fun. I thought that was that, and it was all water under the bridge at that point, but I guess that's where she started hating me. My husband has always just sat and let her yell at him, so me saying, "I'm sorry, I need to excuse myself to get some air," really set her off, but I digress. A couple of weeks ago, my husband got word that he was going to be transferred to a new station soon, and he excitedly told my mother mother-in-law about it. She wasn't super thrilled, but we brushed it off as concern about the move and distance since it's further away than he's ever been stationed. A few days later, I sent her some pictures of my husband's new haircut because she asked me to send her pictures of him. She just said, "Nice pic," and nothing else. So I called her and asked her if she felt okay, and she told me she was worried about the move, worried that I pressured him into a further location away from her and that she would never get to see him. I told her I had nothing to do with the move and that I couldn't go that long without seeing my family anyway, so I promised we would visit. She again didn't say anything to me, but later called him about it. He reassured her that no one has any say in where the Army sends him since his job is very specialized and there's only a couple of bases in the US where he can even work, that this is actually really good for his career and that he's very close to a promotion. She said, "Oh, I didn't realize," and dropped it. Frustrating, but whatever. This week, she changed her profile picture to one with my husband and his ex-wife with the caption, "Best day of my life." It's important to mention here that his ex did a lot of damage to him. She wailed on him regularly, once hard enough to wake him out of a dead sleep the first night back from a combat deployment because she found dirty videos on his browser history. She knew he watched, she just wanted to police the genres he watched. She put parental controls on the phone and demanded she go through it regularly. She threatened to harm herself and violence against him whenever she didn't get her way. After they separated, but before she moved out, she was mad that he wouldn't hand over his phone, and she punctured their couch 16 times before pushing him to the ground. He finally filed a police report that night. Now there's a restraining order against her that she's broken twice. She's also gotten a warrant for failure to appear for her weapons surrender court date. His entire family hates her. My mother-in-law has stated that she hates her, so when I saw that his mom changed her picture to that, I removed myself. I just didn't want to deal with the drama. A couple of days later, she reached out to my husband to ask why I had deleted her. The texts are pretty self-explanatory. This is what the text from his mom said. "Hey, so I went on Facebook this morning to see if OP had any family posts about her grandpa that I could share sympathy and condolences with, only to find out that I've been unfriended. I didn't think it happened during our visit, but I don't know what I did wrong this time." Sideways smile face. "Geez, is it that bad?" And the husband said, "Sorry, I actually wanted to talk to you about this today. She wants to be in an amicable relationship with you." So here's where I might be the jerk. I was furious that she would treat him like that. I watched her use him as an emotional punching bag for our entire relationship. Every time she's depressed, anxious, or had a problem with his brother, which is roughly twice a week, she calls him to unload on him. He never feels good after the phone calls. He's always on the verge of tears, and I've seen him have a full breakdown after being told he was a bad son for not being able to get his leave approved to come visit her enough. So I sent her this giant message laying out how she was treating us. This is what the message said. "The way you behave towards your own son is almost incomprehensible. He was trying to speak up for himself for once in his life and you treated him like trash. You are an incredibly selfish, mean-hearted person and my husband doesn't deserve anything you've done to him. You are so self-absorbed that you don't even realize the anxiety and depression that you've directly caused him. He loves incredibly hard and he's been so heartbroken over how you've been acting. No child should have to be the emotional support for their parent, but I watched him do it for you multiple times and it hurts me deeply to see him cry over you. But it doesn't even seem like you care. The drive that you made does not justify how you've treated us both while you were here, and I've had a hard road too. I've made mistakes like anyone, but I sure as heck don't use it as justification to treat my own family as a punching bag. I am amazed that my husband turned out to be such a saint considering what you've put him through. But don't worry, I'll pick up the slack where you failed. I'll console him when he cries over you. When he's in a panic attack over what you've said to him, when he has nightmares from the stress, I'll be there for him. I'm sorry you couldn't grow up and simply apologize for your behavior. Maybe someday you'll see the immense damage you've caused and reach out to reconcile. But until then, you're a stranger. Goodbye. So there was no response to this text at all. Then his brother texted him an unholy nightmare of a rant about it, and my husband's response to it was incredibly calm considering what we both wanted to say. So the brother texted and said, Okay, I've tried to respect your privacy, but I can keep silent no longer. What the heck is going on in your head, dude? I am livid and sickened by everything that is going on with you and OP towards mom and the rest of us. You may not care, but we have been there for mom since she got back, and she is not sleeping, having panic attacks, and throwing up all of this stupid stuff that you're throwing at her face. This chick you are with now, that you are married to now, is a clone of your ex. She is pulling all the same childish nonsense. She is blocking all of us just for talking to you. I'm scared for you, brother, and confused by the fact that you're letting this stuff happen. You are her B, just like your ex. She says jump and you say how high. When mom came to see you, you pushed her away and treated her worse than dirt, just cause that B said to. If you had any kind of self-respect, you would have dumped her over that and actually spent time with mom and grandma when they drove 4 days to see you. If you have any respect for this family, put that B in her place and stop letting her tell you which direction the sky is. So at that point, my husband and I talked and decided that all of this was entirely too much drama, and we both blocked the whole family. But that's where we are now. I'm unbelievably thankful for my husband's support here, but I still needed to vent and let this all out. I know my response to her wasn't in great taste, and I'm not making excuses or anything, but I just snapped at that point. I really didn't care what she said to or about me, but treating him like that just pushed me over the edge. Did we do the right thing here? Was blocking them the best course of action? How should we handle things going forward? My husband would like a good relationship with his dad, but holidays and reunions are going to be challenging. Does anyone have any advice on how to maneuver that? So there is an update to this where the OP says, my husband had a conversation with his dad. His dad is trying to remain neutral, it seems, which honestly I respect. That being said, his reasoning for my mother-in-law acting the way that she was that she's chemically imbalanced and can't always control her emotions. My father-in-law wants my husband to unblock his mother and have a conversation with her to try and work things out. He told my husband that she's taking him blocking her pretty hard, blaming herself for everything that happened. This last week, I've been overrun with nightmares about a narcissistic ex of mine. It took so much fighting to get him out of my life for good, and so many of the same earmarks are here now. I'm so scared what she's going to do if my husband ends up reaching out to her. He's on the fence about it right now because he's also sick of her acting this way. He doesn't know if he wants a relationship with her at all anymore. Now, this feels a little unfair to me, but am I just being overly insensitive here? She does have a lot of mental health issues, but does that mean I have to just take everything she has to say lying down? If my husband does reach out, should I keep her blocked? My husband ended up texting his dad last night, laying it out all on the table for him. Then we woke up this morning to a response from my father-in-law. In the response, he said to my husband that he is a part of her treatment, that he needs to reconcile for her treatments to work, and that mother-in-law might attempt to unlive herself and needs a stress-free environment. Guys, I'm about to be absolutely unhinged. Father-in-law is literally begging us to take her nonsense, and I'm terrified that my husband is going to crack. My mother-in-law wasn't always this bad, and he wants to go back to the days of her being supportive. As of right now, he's sticking to no contact. Originally, I thought father-in-law was neutral, but while mother-in-law / brother-in-law were calling me crazy, a B, a clone of the abusive ex, and unstable for standing up for myself and my husband, father-in-law is remaining calm. I mistook this for neutrality. So in the next update, the OP says, I thought we were done. I thought we had made it clear what needed to happen before contact was made. I thought father-in-law, though equally as manipulative, had at least understood. But my husband got a text yesterday morning asking if father-in-law was still allowed to talk to him. Followed it up with, and assuming yes, I'd like to try and sort out what it would take to get you to talk to your mom. As if he hadn't been crystal clear in his last texts. The one glimmer of hope that he gave us was saying that my husband could set ground rules if he wanted. He said that mother-in-law's latest treatment went well and that she's doing better. The last text we got from her was 19 days ago. So sorry if I don't believe that she's completely flipped her life around. My husband has her blocked on Facebook and I'm not friends with her, but some mutual friends are telling us about the whole woe is me guilt trippy posts she's been making as recently as Wednesday. Well, before yesterday, my husband wanted to hold on to that glimmer of hope that his mother was going to get better and that things between them could be reconciled. He responded with a long text, basically saying that while he hopes father-in-law is right and her treatments are working, he's just not ready to accept the risk of that behavior in his life again. He doesn't want to welcome that toxicity into our marriage. He told father-in-law that the very first step towards any healing or reconciliation would be a genuine genuine apology to me. He told father-in-law that right now he still feels like breaking the no contact would be sending a message that he can be guilted into forgiving her and all of her name calling and general hostility. That went over about as well as you would expect. Here's the quote. Not trying to guilt you into anything. I'm asking a question in an attempt to reconnect as a family. I'm a bit confused too, as it seems like you're now saying that your mom is abusive. When did you put her into that category? Friends, I was furious. He told my husband that he could set ground rules for contact, then didn't like that the only thing my husband asked of her. I've been so worried my husband was going to let them back into our lives, but he really let his spine shine through when he responded, and I love him so much more for it. He said it out straight for father-in-law, told him that he's really hurt over everything mother-in-law has pulled, called out her toxic behavior, called out father-in-law and his unwillingness to agree to the only thing that my husband has asked for, then told him in no uncertain terms that he was done. He blocked father-in-law and brother-in-law on social media, then blocked all three of them through his phone carrier. We had a long talk about it last night and agreed this was the end of any hope there was still of having contact again. So what should I do in this situation, and am I the jerk? It seems like the way the family is set up here, there's never really going to be a permanent severing off of the family, which is maybe why things keep going in circles. I mean, they sort of halfway apologize and say, hey, it's not going to be that way, but then immediately fail to acknowledge what has actually happened prior to that. Like, for example, the father-in-law being surprised of what they think about the mother-in-law. I mean, what do they think they were arguing about this entire time? It's almost like as soon as she gets an ailment or something is going on with her, he disregards all the other aspects of it. So it's understandably incredibly frustrating from the perspective of the OP. But this is a very tangled thread. Let me know what you would do if you're in this situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for wanting to tell my brother's fiance about the tracking app he secretly installed in her phone that he bought for her? I'm a 22-year-old female. My brother, who's 27, is currently engaged to his fiance, who's 25. He bought her a new phone for Valentine's Day and asked my boyfriend, who's trained in computer software, to install a hidden tracking app on the phone so his fiance won't see it or notice it. I overheard them talking about it, and when I entered the room, they went silent. I waited till my brother left, and then I talked to my boyfriend. He denied having this conversation with my brother first, then admitted to installing the app on the phone. I told him he and my brother were in the wrong because this is a huge breach of privacy. He said he has nothing to do with it and advised me to stay out of it as well. But I said I want to tell my brother's fiance. My boyfriend argued with me about being nosy and intrusive, but told me to stay out of it and let them deal with their own issues. But I thought that it was unfair to my future sister-in-law since she's the one working, paying the bills and rent, and this is how she's treated. My boyfriend told me to GTFO with this attitude, and again said I should stay out of it because it does not concern me in any way. I don't know. I feel horrible after hearing about what my brother did, and since I have a good relationship with his fiance, I can't help but feel guilty in wanting to tell her. Am I the jerk for wanting to tell my boyfriend's fiance about the tracking app he secretly installed in her new phone that he bought for her on Valentine's Day? How is the first thought not, oh, if my boyfriend is secretly doing this for my brother's fiance, he's obviously doing this to me or has been already doing this to me? I mean, how is that not immediately the first thing that comes to mind, especially if he's doing it all in secret? It's not like he came to her and said, hey, we're doing this with your brother's fiance. She found out because she overheard them sneaking about, talking about it, and then he wouldn't even admit to it when she came in and then went silent. If I had to guess, there's a very high chance that the OP has had her phone tracked this entire time that she's been together with her boyfriend, who she claimed is trained in computer and software type stuff in order to do this. If you've ever been in a situation where somebody has had this happen to them, where they're being tracked without them knowing it, let me know down below. And also, jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for getting a belly button piercing without discussing it with my boyfriend first? I'm a 22-year-old female and I started regularly working out about 9 months ago. It's honestly been a life-changing decision. I've never felt happier, healthier, and more self-confident than I do now, thanks to me hitting the gym so frequently. I naturally ended up with a toned stomach and some nice abs. Ever since this happened, I started finding belly button piercings very appealing because in my opinion, they really make a hot abdomen pop. The thought of getting one has always been in the back of my mind, but I just never got around to actually doing it for various reasons. A week ago, one of my best friends told me that she was making an appointment to get her tongue pierced by an extremely reputable local body piercer. Impulsively, I immediately said, all right, this is finally the right time. time get me a reservation as well. I didn't tell my 25-year-old boyfriend anything because I figured surprising him would be way more fun. A couple of days ago, I succeeded in getting my belly button pierced at last after such a long time. I'm absolutely in love with it. When I revealed my new accessory to my boyfriend, he got very mad though. He berated me by saying this is a floozy piercing and that I should have consulted him about it beforehand. He also asked me to take it off, but I firmly told him no way. After that went down, he began giving me the cold shoulder and continues to do so until this day. So, am I the jerk for getting a belly button piercing without discussing it with my boyfriend first? The way the boyfriend described here makes it sound like the boyfriend thinks that she, the OP, has no say whatsoever on what happens with her body. I mean, he can express his opinion if he wants, but the fact that he's telling her to do this and do that and that she's not allowed to do any piercings without having any input from what she has to say about it is pretty weird. It seems like that is the beginning of a whole bunch of these type of control related issues that I'm sure will come down the path eventually if this is how it is this early. And the fact that he is seriously referring to her as a floozy for getting this piercing is pretty ridiculous. But let me know what you guys think, jerk or not a jerk, and what would you do? Am I the jerk for not wanting to celebrate my mom on my birthday? I have 3 siblings between the ages of 10 and 18. I'm the oldest, 4th, at 25 years old. Every year, on every single day of one of our birthdays, we're expected to celebrate my mom as well. We've done it since we were little. It was taught to me as giving thanks for caring plus giving birth to us, which I'm all for and I'm grateful as we wouldn't be here without her. The issue is though, it's become less of our birthday and more so of an anniversary for the day that our mom gave birth. Every year on our birthday, our mom gets gifts too. As we got older, we're now expected to get her monetary gifts and not cards or homemade stuff. Just recently was my birthday and I was gifted some much needed clothes and dishware for my new apartment. My dad, however, got my mom a new MacBook. My siblings all got her gifts too. My youngest brother isn't expected to give much, but my 16-year-old sister and my 18-year-old second brother work, so they're expected to give gifts too. My sister pulled me aside before my birthday and said she was sorry she couldn't get me much. She got me a sweater, I love it, and that she wanted to get me more, but our mom was pressuring her to get a certain necklace for her. Apparently, my mom had been dropping hints for months, and my sister was worried our mom would get upset and feel underappreciated if she didn't get the necklace. I asked her how much the necklace was, and my sister said it was $300. I honestly lost it on our mom and chewed into her later that afternoon when my mom opened her gifts after me. I think it's ridiculous for even wanting my sister to spend so much on a gift. My mom started crying, and my dad kicked me out. My mom won't answer my calls, but my aunt, my mom's sister, called and said that I was a POS for not respecting my mother and that I am a selfish, narcissistic child for being jealous of the gifts that my mom got. I thought that I was in the right, but now I don't know. It's been over 2 weeks and my mom won't answer my calls. She's been posting on Facebook inspiration quotes about letting go of the toxicity in your life, how blood doesn't equal family, and how hard it is to be a mother. Several family members, aunt, grandma, uncle, and 2 of my cousins are replying to the posts because they are very obviously directing vague comments at me about being a horrible daughter. I don't know what to think now because of how many people are on her side. So, am I the jerk for not wanting to celebrate my mom on my birthday? I've actually never heard of anything like this ever. I've never heard of a mom that wants her birthday to happen every time her kids have a birthday, or the equivalent in terms of the celebration, as some sort of perpetual tax they have to pay in exchange for being carried and born. I mean, the kids here didn't choose to be born. The mother chose to have the kids. But the way this reads is kind of like she just wants to be permanently compensated every single year, 4 times a year, 1 time for each of her kids, plus a 5th time on her own birthday. It just seems weird. I mean, if she needed a MacBook, why even associate it with the birthday of the OP at all? It's the husband that's buying it, so why not just have the husband get that independently of the birthday? I mean, if you need it, you need it. It's kind of like a weird shakedown of her own kids. She's trying to get a $300 necklace from her young daughter. The necklace is probably not a need to have thing like the MacBook, so I don't really understand the reasoning behind how somebody would expect that of their own kids on a regular basis. But if you've ever heard of something like this, let me know what the experience was down below, and let me know jerk or not a jerk and why. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive the neighbor's child home from school when he called me the F slur? I'm an 18-year-old in high school. I bought myself my first car this year and I buy my own gas, but my parents let me put the car on their insurance instead of getting my own in exchange for a few chores, including driving my neighbor's child home from school occasionally when the parents are working late. Last Friday, my parents asked me to pick up the neighbor's boy Kyle from school. He is a high school a freshman, but he skipped a grade, so he's younger than usual. Maybe better academically, but honestly, he's mature even for his age. Also, for a bit of context, I am a lesbian, and just a week ago, I asked my crush to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. Now, another thing about me is driving. I'm new, and my parents have told me it's really important not to be distracted driving. If there is ever a distraction like my brother misbehaving, I should pull over and not drive again until I can drive without a distraction. They won't let me drive my friends yet, or anyone but my brother and Kyle, because they could be a distraction. So, I was driving my brother and Kyle home last Friday, and Kyle says, "I hear you're a F slur." I had just pulled out of the school driveway and gone maybe 30 feet. I pulled over, parked the car in someone else's driveway, and turned around and said, "Excuse me? What did you just say?" And he goes, "Are you an F slur?" And I go, "I have a girlfriend, but you can't be using that word, ever. Did you hear me?" He said,
"So you're an F slur then?"
and I said, "Did your father or mother teach you that word?" He said,
"No, everyone knows what you are."
I asked him where he had learned that word. Was it at home? He said no, he wasn't an R word. He knows what it means. I said if he spoke one more word, I was kicking him out of the car and that I was going to speak to his parents. He said,
"What, you're gonna tattle to me like a baby just because I'm stating the obvious? Everyone says it."
I started the car again and drove back to the school. I parked there and told him to come to the office with me. He wouldn't. So I walked to the office alone and asked the guidance counselor for help. There was a freshman boy who wouldn't leave my car, was calling me slurs, and he needed his parents to come pick him up or someone to help him find the correct bus. She went out and brought him to the office and I went home with my brother. I told my parents what happened, but they apparently got a call from the neighbors first who had been called by the school. They were furious that I caused problems with the next door neighbors, saying that I should have just driven him home and they could have a talk with his parents. I said he was distracting me and they had told me I can't drive with distracting people in the car. And they said I was twisting their words. So, am I the jerk for refusing to drive home the neighbor's child home from school when he called me the F slur? At first, I didn't know what the F slur meant right away, but the story kind of paints the picture of where it's going. The kid was obviously influenced by someone, and I think the OP did what she had to do here without putting the kid in a dangerous environment. I mean, she didn't drop him off on the side of the freeway or something. She just turned around and put him in the hands of adults at his own school, which is a safe alternative to going the other way. And also not putting up with something like that at all to begin with, I think is a good thing for her to learn at this point in her life, rather than just let that continue to happen over and over again and then deal with the consequences later just for the convenience of her parents not having to deal with a dramatic situation that's going to ensue. I think if the parents really took a long, hard look at what happened, they would probably come to the same realization that this is the better outcome than just swallowing whatever it is that is insulting you. I mean, it doesn't have to be this specific scenario. If somebody is trying to berate you and insult you for any reason, why should you have your kid learn to just internalize that and accept it? Especially if there is a safe alternative like there was in this case. But what do you think in this situation? Jerk or not a jerk, and what would you do? Am I the jerk for giving my son's new bike away after the prank he pulled on a girl that he was friends with? So I recently found out that my son Jacob, who's 15 years old, pulled an incredibly cruel prank on one of the girls, Ashley, that's in his friend group. I know this girl. She's been to our house and she's even attended Jacob's birthday party about a month ago. She seemed incredibly sweet, if not a bit shy. So when my oldest son Mark, who's 17, came to me and told me Jacob had asked Ashley out on a date as a prank, I was stunned. I, of course, asked how he could know this, hoping as any mother would that it wasn't true. But Mark showed me the family tablet we all use, but mostly my sons do, and it seems Jacob forgot to log out of his chatting app, Discord. I read the long series of messages between Jacob and his friends as they mocked Ashley all through this heartless prank. I was speechless. And that's not even getting into how he was talking. Like he was some thug and not a 15-year-old living in a gated community. At first, I couldn't figure out what to do or how to proceed. I'll admit that I never once imagined that either of my boys would be the type of person to do something like that, but there was no way I was letting this go. So after a day of thought, I decided what was going to happen. First things first, he was grounded. For how long, I'm not sure. Secondly, I'd gotten Jacob a bike for his birthday, but it hadn't arrived until the day previous, and I'd planned to give it to him when my parents came to visit since they'd been unable to make his party. But instead of that, I showed him I knew about the prank and told him he was grounded. I then made him carry the new bike out of my bedroom closet into the car before driving to Ashley's house, him crying the whole way. I'd called her parents earlier and explained everything everything. And so once we got there, I had him cart it to their front porch and ring the bell. Then in front of me and Ashley and her parents, I had him give a sincere apology and gift her the bike. Even I apologized to her, saying I didn't raise my boy this way and what he did was unforgivable. I also called the parents of the other boys who were part of this little stunt, and they all seemed rightfully horrified by their son's involvement. I felt I'd handle this as best I could. My friends agreed, though once my parents found out that I'd made Jacob give his birthday gift away, they said I went too far. I still feel like what I did was right, but having my parents more or less dogpile on me like this has made me wonder if how I handled it was too extreme. So am I the jerk for giving my son's new bike away after the prank he pulled on Ashley? Somehow this seems like this is going to come back on Ashley in a bad way. Even if not directly, there's going to be some sort of weird resentment, I would assume, from this point forward where nobody's ever going to be happy that she got this bike. And we don't really know that Ashley necessarily even wants that, but all of that is secondary to the fact that this is a really twisted prank, because I'm guessing the OP son is maybe a more popular kid at school and Ashley is maybe not considered traditionally attractive and had a crush on him and they're taking advantage of it just to get a kick out of it. And if that's the case, that is probably something that is going to be hurtful to Ashley regardless if the mother informed her about it or not. It'd probably be a lot worse if she didn't, but the fact that now Ashley knows that this was all a big trick has got to mess with her mind. It seems like a hard situation because if you do nothing about it, then the kid thinks it's okay. And if you do something about it, the kid, I don't think is going to see how messed up what he's doing is. So what's the right thing to do? Let me know down below in the comments, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for siding with my boyfriend after he punished my son for asking for money to watch his step siblings? I'm a 36-year-old female and I've been with my boyfriend who's 41 for 2 years. He has 3 kids, 6, 12, and 4, while I have a 16-year-old son. The other day, my 12-year-old stepson fell off the stairs and injured his ankle. His dad and I had to get him to the hospital and needed someone to stay with the kids while we were there. My boyfriend told my son to skip his workday and stay with and watch his stepbrothers. When we returned, my son asked my boyfriend to pay him for babysitting his kids. I admit my son doesn't have the best relationship with his stepdad or step-siblings, but my boyfriend and I were shocked by this. My son explained that he had to skip a workday, which caused him to lose money, and asked my boyfriend to pay him for his time. My boyfriend scolded him harshly and told him that staying home with his stepbrothers isn't babysitting and that he deserves no money for it. Plus, skipping one workday won't do much harm, but my son disagreed and kept arguing with my boyfriend, saying that his stepbrothers aren't his responsibility. My boyfriend ended up punishing him and taking away all of his electronics as well as canceling his birthday months away. My son fought back, talking about how unfair this was and asked me to get involved. I sided with my boyfriend because I really did not appreciate how my son used this family emergency to his advantage and thought that he'd get money out of helping family out. My son didn't like where I stood in this conflict and accused me of favoring my stepkids to stay on my boyfriend's good side while ignoring the mistreatment towards him. I cut the argument and he's become silent ever since. He even refuses to eat with us or sit with us. So, am I the jerk for siding with my boyfriend after he punished my son for asking him money to watch his step-siblings? I'm assuming the son is living there for free, and if that's the case, maybe there's some sort of built-in responsibilities. But even if that's the case, this kind of thing should definitely be established a lot earlier on. But what would you do if you're in this situation? And let me know, jerk or not a jerk, down below, and why. Can't my daughter braid your hair, please? It would keep her quiet. So I have extremely long hair. It reaches my knees when it's down, and I take extremely good care of it and spend a lot of time, energy, and money keeping it healthy and in great condition. So it's obviously pretty important to me, and even without talking to me, it's obvious that I'm quite protective of it. Usually, when I leave home, I put it up in a bun or some other protective style, but today, I thought it looked really good, so I decided to leave it down for once. Me and my husband went to a local cafe for breakfast, and as we were seated, I saw across from us was a mother and her clearly very excitable young daughter. This is fine, obviously. They're just trying to enjoy their morning like I am, and I don't really pay much attention to them until I heard the girl say to her mother,
Mommy, that lady's hair is so long. Can I play with it?
I think this is a weird request, but don't really expect anything to come of it until I hear the mother trying to get my attention. I turned to her and she asked me if her daughter can play with my hair. It'll keep her quiet. I say no, I'm not comfortable with that. The girl immediately looks heartbroken, and then her mother sighs and just looks tired and says, why not? It's just hair. Let her her play with it. I give her my reasons. I don't like people touching me. I don't let people touch my hair. And there's a pandemic going on. I'd rather not get close to strangers unless I absolutely have to. My husband even chimes in with, she doesn't even like me touching her hair very often, which is a lie. He's like one of the only people who I'm comfortable with, but he was trying to help me get out of a conversation because he's a sweetheart. The girl looks at her mother with a pleading look, but her mom just looks at her and says, the mean lady won't let you, and then shoots me looks of daggers. Like, what the heck, dude? What did I do? Would you let strangers touch your hair, lady? I get that she's tired, but I'm not in the wrong for keeping my boundaries in order. A slight annoyance, but luckily they were already most of the way through their meal by the time we arrived, so they weren't there for too long. Still a weird situation that made me overall uncomfortable. Was I the jerk for not letting her touch my hair in order to keep her quiet? I wonder what sort of other things the mother allows the daughter to do that would make this seem so normal, to go up to a random person and ask if your daughter can play with some random person's hair. I mean, even being weird to the person that you're asking, you're gonna let your daughter play in the hair of someone that you have no idea who they are, what they have in their hair, and nothing. I mean, there could be all sorts of grime or lice, and maybe just by eyeballing it, you wouldn't really be able to tell that. I mean, at least she's not like some other parents we've heard of in some of these stories where they just say, yeah, go ahead, do it. And then the kid is just grabbing onto the person's hair and they're all confused. I think some people would actually be totally fine with letting a kid grab their hair that they don't know, but other people clearly are not, like the OP here. But let me know what you would say if somebody asked you if their kid could play with your hair for whatever reason down below. Am I the jerk for telling my husband he is expecting too much from our sons over the amount of eggs he eats? I'm a 39-year-old female and my husband is 47 years old. He's a very traditional man and he also used to be a star football player for his team when he was younger. He is a very built man and I, of course, love him the way he is. We also have a 15-year-old lovely son who took after me a little more than his dad. By that, I mean he isn't particularly brawny or doesn't have an eye for sports. So about a year ago, my son decided to pick up exercising, which of course I was glad for. We started jogging together and he started to eat a little healthier. However, recently my husband has been, in my opinion, a little harsh on our son. He expects him to do reps and eat a lot more protein, but I think he is forcing him too much. Our son started to talk less with his friends and pushing himself more and more. Last Sunday, I made all of his breakfast. I made 2 eggs for both my husband and my son, but my husband insisted that he had more eggs. So I made 2 more eggs. He ate them, although barely, and my husband insisted I do more despite my son not wanting any more this time. I told him that he needs to stop and that he was expecting too much from our son. He said that it was nonsense, and as his kid, he expects him to be like how he was when he was younger. I called him ridiculous, and he told me that as the father of our kid, he should guide him and that I was interfering. We haven't really talked much since I'm afraid I might be the jerk because I came in between their relationship. So am I the jerk for telling my husband he is expecting too much from our son over the amount of eggs that he wants our son to eat? This almost sounds like some sort of parody post, like it's a joke or something, but I'm assuming it's not, that it's actually real. And if that's the case, the one thing the husband is forgetting is that the son is not a clone of himself. The son is a combination of both him and his mother. And maybe his mother isn't brawny like how he was and can't just eat a bunch of eggs like, as some people pointed out, Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. This is one of those things where it sounds like one day, way in the future, when the son is a full adult, he's going to look back and wonder why he hates eggs so much. And then he'll remember, oh yeah, my father forced me to eat so many eggs I felt sick and I puked them all out, or whatever the memories are of this that he's going to have, because this type of training is day in, day out. So what would you do in this situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for turning around and walking out of the restaurant after seeing my boyfriend's 2-year-old son there? So I met this guy, Will, 5 months ago. He's really sweet and loving. He has a 2-year-old kid with his baby mama. The problem I have is that whenever we plan on going out for a date, Will's baby mama would call and demand that he take take their son to stay with him. They never married, so there's no legal custody arrangements in place. Every time we plan to go out, she'd call and demand that Will come pick up their son to stay with him for a few hours, resulting in our plans being canceled. I told him his baby's mama has been doing this deliberately. He said he noticed too, but cannot tell her no because if he refuses to take their son, she'd not allow him to see him for a whole month as punishment. I told Will he has to put an end to this because it's affecting how our relationship is progressing, and he said he'll try. Last week he invited me out for dinner at the restaurant. I was so excited because he told me he was already at the restaurant, so I thought his baby's mama doesn't know, so she won't wreck our plans. I got dressed nicely, I did my hair, and just took care of myself real good, looking forward for some quality time together. However, when I arrived to the restaurant, I saw Will and his son there. I felt rage and disappointment washing over me. Will saw me and waved me to come closer, but I turned around and walked out. He followed me outside, trying to explain, but I decided to go home, and the date was obviously canceled. Later, he texted explaining that his baby's mama did it again. He said he didn't know how she figured out that we were going out and demanded that he take their son for the night. He said he didn't want to be punished, but neither wanted to cancel our date, so he brought his son to the restaurant, and I was wrong to turn around and walk out. I told him I was sick of this woman dictating our life and being intentionally hurtful, but he said I ruined our night after he tried to compromise and didn't appreciate that. Maybe I did, but I just wanted a quiet dinner for us both. I'm just disappointed that once again he let his baby's mama bully him into doing what she wanted. So, am I the jerk? The first thing that seemed kind of off to me in this whole situation is that they can't have any custody arrangement because they weren't married. People have that all the time without being married. And the big gaping hole in this whole story is, how does the ex know when they're about to go out? There's got to be some way that she's finding out. The most obvious answer is that he's probably just telling her for some reason, or maybe it's something more sinister, like she has cameras pointing at their house or there's cameras inside of her house. At this point, we've seen all different types of stuff that people do to get information like this, and pretty much all of it is creepy unless he's just straight up telling her. And unless they have some sort of agreement, I don't think she can just punish him by not letting him see his own kid for a month. It sounds like either he doesn't understand that that really isn't something that she can do to him, or it's just something that he's telling the OP in order to keep things going the way that they are right now for whatever reason. But basically, he either needs to have some sort of sustainable, healthy relationship with the ex so that they can co-parent together in a way that's not destructive like this, or not be in a relationship. It sounds like there's not really any other way to go about this. But let me know what you think down below. Jerk or not a jerk, and what would you do? A lady doesn't want a drink for her food, so she has to pay for each item individually. I worked at KFC for about 6 months as my first job, and this happened to me towards the end of my stay. One of our managers, who I'll dub Jay, is pretty strict with us in order to keep up with time and company policy, but we didn't mind as he usually worked online with us rather than sit in the office all day. And he does not have patience for rude people. And on one typical military payday Friday, in towns next to military bases, all soldiers come in force on payday, we were slammed. And he was working register when a lady orders one of our 12-piece buckets, biscuits and all. Now, usually you can save some money by ordering them as a meal. This gives you a drink as well. So, as usual, he asks what drink she wants, intending to make it a meal automatically. She declines the drinks. He tries to explain, "Ma'am, if we make it a meal, you'll..." And she cuts him off with a, "I don't care! I don't need drinks!" As I said before, he hates rude people. So, he immediately shuts up, smiles to me, and says, "OP, can I get a 12-piece family fill up and don't worry about the drinks?" Before turning to her and finishing the order, which took a moment as we couldn't simply press the combo button anymore. Rather, we had to ring up all the items themselves. He then had to ring up every single item individually, which racks up the price given the amount of items, and then finishes the order, which was well above what the normal price would be. It initially went off without a hitch, but unfortunately for us at the time, the family behind ordered another 12-piece family fill-up, but they ordered the combo. As Jay was finishing up the second family order, the first one stepped aside to check the bags for everything, then they hear the price. Jay rang the second family for almost half the price of theirs, and she storms over. "How come theirs is so cheap? We ordered the same thing," she asks. To which Jay replies, wearing the standard issue customer service smile, "You said you didn't want no combo, ma'am. So I ran them up up individually, ma'am. So you paid for them, not as a combo, but as the order you insisted on me making, ma'am. She then asked for the manager, claiming that we're scamming her, to which Jay responds by walking behind the wall and coming back 2 seconds later wearing his manager vest, and Jay says, "Hello, I heard we had a problem, and I came to see what I could help with." She grabs her food and leaves. That's something that always confuses me, how certain places it's actually cheaper to get the drink as a combo than to not get it. Coming from someone who almost never gets the drink, I always try to ask them that, but it always seems to lead to confusion. But in this case, it seems like the manager was actually trying to help her out by saying if you order with the drink, it's cheaper. I mean, in this case, he is complying with what she said. He tried to tell her how it would be cheaper. She didn't want to hear it, so he complied whether it was malicious or not. Let me know what you would do in a situation like this down below. An entitled mother breaks my 3080 Ti NVIDIA graphics card / computer after I won't give her kid my PC. So I've been playing on a 1650 Super for a while, and I wanted something better to bump up my graphics on Tarkov, and my cousin, who's a 31-year-old entitled mother, and her son, who's a 13-year-old entitled child, were over at my house visiting my parents. My GPU came in while they were over, so I rushed into the office to start putting it in my PC. The entitled child comes in to watch me and talk. About halfway through, he asked why I have two of them, and I told him it's because I use two computers for my setup for streaming. He runs off and I get back to work. About 40 minutes later, after I get my 3080 in and swap my 1650 Super into my stream / overlay PC, the entitled mother comes in and starts asking casual questions like, what am I doing? How does it help? And basic stuff like that. I explained the process and how I use two computers to help with the strain of streaming and gaming when the entitled mother asked what would be a good computer for entitled child for his birthday. I told them I could help them build a good PC for entitled child on a budget for around $800 to $1,100 for a decent starter, when she said the words that hurt me. Why don't you give entitled child one of your computers? You don't need two. You haven't gotten him gifts for his birthday in a while. No, they live across the country. I told entitled mother I can't do that because my computers are worth over $3,000 with the upgrades and RGB I have in them. The entitled mother started to say I was ungrateful for what I have and that I should give the entitled child my computer because we are family. I started to get heated because entitled mother started screaming about how all my life I've only had things handed to me and I've never had to struggle for what I have. I retorted with, I work 2 full-time jobs to afford what I have and have been working on the computers for over a year. It's not my fault you got pregnant at 18 with a deadbeat who left you. Entitled mother then violently kicked my computer, shattering the glass and destroying the liquid cooling and the 3080, and almost kicked the second PC with the 1650 Super, but was promptly tackled by me. The entitled mother starts screaming that I assaulted her while I had my father escort entitled mother and entitled child off the premises, which they were never allowed back on. So, was I the jerk? Wow, imagine waiting all this time to get a graphics card that you've been waiting for who knows how long with all these shortages of everything. You finally get it, you're finally installing it, and before you can even try it out, somebody comes in and kicks your PC, shattering the glass and breaking the 3080? That has got to be horrible. So much excitement all to fizzle out in that moment. I mean, he even had enough excitement to answer all these questions. It kind of sounded like the entitled mother knew the importance or at least the rationale of why he had two PCs because she was actually inquiring further. But after hearing how this ended, it's probably not that she was really trying to understand why he needed two. She was trying to find a reason why he didn't. So I'm guessing she probably zoned out during all these reasons just to cut to the chase and say, hey, why don't you give this extra computer to him? When he's trying to tell her clearly it's not an extra computer. They're both being put to use. I mean, a 3080 is a lot of money. I don't really know how you come back from that, but obviously she went low, the OP went low, and then she went even lower, arguably, by kicking the computer and breaking it. And all these entitled child, entitled parents stories, the sad part is that the entitled children or the children with the entitled parents have to grow up in a situation where that's what they're learning. I mean, you can't really put all the blame on the kid in this situation situation because he's not the one who did all this, first of all. And also, he's only learning from his biggest role model, his actual parents. So if somebody came in your room, kicked your PC, broke your 3080 after you saved up working 2 jobs, how would you react? Would you do what he did here by banning them from the premises after tackling them, or would you do something completely different? Let me know down below. Chivalrous Sam tries to Facebook, or how I learned what it's like to share the internet with a cyber bulimic. Player 1 is me, Lady Saber, 16-year-old foreign exchange student from Belgium. Exam week is finally over, so I'm enjoying the holiday out of town with my host family. Also, I'm a huge Song of Ice and Fire / Lord of the Rings nerd. Player 2 is Sir Sam, the chivalrous Smooth Cheeks, the whitest knight of all. Generally a lard, ever-present aroma of stale Italian food. Never removes his trilby because he never sleeps and never showers. Sam also has the Facebook habits of someone with an eating disorder. I have no other notions of how to describe it. He'll make 4, 5, 6 posts in rapid succession about anything, ranging from atheism, look what a nice guy I am, and general rants designed to flaunt his intelligence. This is the binge. About an hour later, he'll come back and purge all of them, or 4 out of 5, no matter how much time he spent on thesaurus.com writing them. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and it's why I'm not able to screen cap most of the stuff he actually posts. Player 3 is John, the guy that I'm crushing on, and an all-around good person. We aren't officially dating yet, but it's heading that way. Arch nemesis to Sam. He's not in this story, but he gets mentioned, so that's a bit of his backstory. This story begins immediately after the previous one, the day before Christmas break. I check Facebook, mostly keeping up with friends and family overseas, and I see one of Sam's tirades clogging my feed like cholesterol plaque. So there's a screenshot from Facebook where Sam says,
"Honestly, breakups are the most arduous thing someone can experience."
A random person responded, "Lol, which fake girlfriend did you break up with now?" And Sam wrote back and said,
"F you, I never had a fake GF."
That comment should give you an idea of Sam's dating history. Apparently in middle school, Sam made up a series of girlfriends in more and more outlandish tales. He'd find some girl on the internet, snag a few of her pictures, and flaunt them around. As soon as people would start poking holes in the story, he'd break up with her and start all over again, except each time the girl would get hotter and more amazing, and he'd round more bases with each of them. Eventually, he claimed that he did the deed with some out-of-his-league blonde. Unbeknownst to Sam, that girl happened to live nearby and was in high school just down the road from the middle school. Some people who knew her got in touch and confronted him with her in tow, and it actually made a spectacle worthy of public freakouts. Continuing with our tour, if you look to your left, my ladies and gentle sirs, we can see a homemade meme by Sam and a beardy friend. So in this screenshot from Facebook, Sam posts a meme with a girl kind of shrugging her shoulders and her hand up that has the text, "Why can't I find a nice guy exactly like you, except not you?" And Sam's caption says, "If you're looking for a fantastic guy to date, check your friend zone first. Haha." A random person responded to this and said, "I understand this feel, bro. Sometimes I think girls just want to be mistreated by some asshat." Sam responded to this saying,
"Exactly. I won't sacrifice who I am and treat women differently just because that's what they're accustomed to. If she doesn't care that you're nice, she's a B anyway, and you should just move on."
Check your friend zone reads to me in the same voice as check your privilege. I checked it, it's there. Also, I found the asshat in question, which links to a picture of a fedora. Sir Sam also makes a pass at Milady, who appreciated his thought-provoking quote. In this post, Sir Sam says,
"The best love is the kind that awakens the soul, that makes us reach for more and plants fire in our hearts and brings peace to our minds."
A Milady responds to this and says, "I love this quote." Sam writes back and says,
"I'm glad, milady, finally someone of the opposite gender who can appreciate a meaningful conjecture."
All of these posts are from the same day. Those 3 are the only surviving companions of about 18 or so. You thought I was kidding? The next day, radio silence. Then, in the afternoon, a text message. It's a screenshot of What Makes You Beautiful by One Direction, saying,
"Not being weird, it's just a song that I like." Smiley face.
I look it up, I give it a listen, it's poppy and repetitive, so I turn it off after about 30 seconds. A few hours later, he follows up with,
"What did you think?"
"Not my taste," I replied. "My taste is mostly screamo and classical orchestra with a few select American alt-rock bands."
Well, what is your taste?"
I forget sometimes that there is no font for sarcasm. Gospel. No response other than a string of Facebook posts, of which only 2 survive. If you go to church, you're literally Satan. The Facebook post from Sam says,
if you participate in the organized destruction of independent thought called church, then we don't need to be acquainted.
if you don't, you're neckbeard smoosh. So this Facebook post from Sam is sharing the atheist experiences photo with a caption that says,
Take note, ladies. Reason is sexy.
and it has a picture of 4 women with their arms crossed. The original caption on this says, Godless bees assemble. Everyone's a winner. I debate telling him that it was just a joke, but I dread the outcome of that conversation, and I don't have any idea of how it would go. For the rest of the break, silence. I have a blast with my host family, get more Christmas loot than I know what to do with, and generally enjoy my break from school and Sir Sam. It's after New Year's Day when Sam gathers up enough alpha male energy to message me again. I keep a strained conversation with him for about half an hour while he talks about Call of Duty, stuff he got for Christmas. There are many times where I don't know how to respond, but he happily fills in the spaces and keeps on keeping on. Eventually he asks,
What's wrong?
Nothing much really.
You're just not saying much.
Yeah, I'm not in the mood to talk right now.
Oh, what did I do?
Sam, that's a pretty long list.
I know. Sorry. I just haven't really had a girlfriend that I could talk to very much before, so I'm still figuring that stuff out.
I'm not your girlfriend, Sam.
I know. I mean, a friend that's a girl.
Okay, there was a space between girl and friend, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Before I can further clarify the status of our relationship, he's off in another direction.
So do you speak French?
Yes.
That's cool. Me too.
Okay, that came out of nowhere like a clown in a bad funhouse. I'm a bit skeptical, so I push it gently with him. The following messages were in French, and I've translated. You speak French?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Why didn't you tell me?
I don't know.
Okay, what are you doing now?
I'm hungry.
The shocker of a lifetime.
I'm being eaten.
What? You're being eaten?
Yes, I'm being eaten for lunch.
I give up here because it's pretty clear he's using some translating software or an online dictionary. RIP, my mother tongue. A little explanation about the French language. In English, when you want to use a verb, you need a helping verb to go with it. I am playing or he is eating. In French, you don't eat. I eat, I am eating, I do eat are all the same phrase. You have the subject, then the verb. The helping verb is implied in the action. Some English speakers, however, will try to translate literally from English to French. In this case, Sam translated I am eating directly, and the result is I am being eaten. At the very least, we can rest assured that this will be the most effective weight loss plan ever. Later that day, he follows with,
Lol, I don't really speak French. I was just messing with you.
I don't give a reply. None of this, however, is a crown jewel. Emboldened by what could only be a vat of homemade ravioli, thanks mom, Sam takes aim.
Hey, a bunch of friends and I are going to go see The Hobbit this Saturday after break. Do you want to tag along?
John has beat him to the punch actually, but I'm not keen to give him that detail. No thanks, Sam.
Oh, why not?
I don't give a reply. Soon enough, though, he follows up with,
I bet you're going with John, huh?
Am I really going to be that transparent? There's no point in lying to him. Yes, I am.
Okay, I get it, but I don't think I'll ever be able to convince you that he's bad news. But I promise someday you'll see what I mean.
This isn't exactly a tough bet. Either we break up or never become an official couple anytime in the future and you win. Otherwise, we get married and live happily ever after because that's a realistic option. Another cheesy, meaty gorge of academic papers ensues on Facebook, followed by a book-burning level of purge. This gem is the only survivor. This Facebook post from Sam says,
I finally decipher the age-old confusion. Why do girls only go for jerks and leave guys who cherish them in the dust? Well, ladies, mostly, and gentlemen, the justification is in our upbringing. You see, when girls are little, a boy percusses them or calls them malicious names. Parents inform girls that he just likes you, honey. In turn, when girls grow up and look for a mate, the only thing they associate with affection is maliciousness. It's a representative model of Pavlov's dogs. Thus, when a man comes along who has class and dignity and treats women the way they should be treated, they have not been conditioned to interpret this as endearment and ignore his advances. In short, nice guys finish last, not because we are inferior, but because society as a whole endeavors in the opposite tendency.
if you make it out of that alphabet soup with all of your brain cells, I commend you. At the time, I really didn't understand why he and people like him all have this same pattern of thesaurusing every fifth word in their online posts. Correct me if I'm wrong, wrong, but I have an inkling. Most neckbeards fancy themselves as being on a higher intellectual plane than everyone else. Yes, most of them are slightly above average intelligence, but nowhere near the genius scale, and almost all are chronic underachievers. Despite this, they've built an image in their heads of being the brainiest guy in their zip code. So they talk the way they believe an actual smart person would talk. In spirit of Facebook, I'll end with a made-up quote. A smart man can play dumb, but a dumb man in no way can play smart. When Lady Saber explains the long history that Sam has of making up girlfriends and explaining these huge backstories and then saying that they broke up when people tried to investigate too far, I think that's something that a lot of people have seen. I mean, kids in general tend to lie a lot for some reason, especially when the thing that they're lying about is something that would make them seem really cool or interesting. It's kind of like the whole "my dad works in Nintendo" type of lie that kids tell to each other, but there are definitely a lot of kids that make up this whole lie about, yeah, my girlfriend, she's really, really pretty, but she goes to another school, when clearly this person doesn't exist at all. I'm not sure why that's such a common thing to occur, but if you've ever seen something like that, let me know. And once again, this whole story kind of highlights the strange underlying entitlement that Sam has that she ought to be his girlfriend for some reason, not because he can tell that she likes him, not because of any other reason other than that he wants her to be. And he's trying to do that by being mean in a lot of the previous stories. And in this one, trying to kind of out-logic her into saying, John is a bad guy, I'm a good guy, come date me, why aren't you dating me? And then post these cryptic messages that are obviously about her just to get his frustration out, like she wouldn't know that they're directly referring to her. Anyway, let me know what you would do in this situation down below. And also, if you'd like to see another story in this saga. Lesson learned, I am never bringing my Nintendo Switch to work ever again. So this happened to me today. I work in fast food. To give you a clearer picture, I went on my break and I was playing Pokemon Shield. I'm saving Legends Arceus for when I get home and I have more time. So I'm playing my game when I see a young boy about 7 years old watching me. I look up and see his mother watching us. She nods, so I assume she's giving me permission to talk to him. I ask if he's played before and he says no, so I let him play on it. I tell him I started playing when I was his age and gave him pointers when he asks. So the alarm goes off on my phone for the end of my break and I ask for it back, which he does and thanks me for letting him play. I'm walking towards the staff room when I hear the call of the wild Karen behind me. Karen says, ahem. I look back and I see the boy's mother behind me. Yes, can I help you? Karen. Yes, you can let my son keep playing your game. You're going to be working now, so he can play it until we leave. We're paying customers after all. Me. Sorry, miss, but this is my property, so I'm going to put it in my bag now. Karen. No! Give my son your game now! Boy. Mom, stop it. I don't want her game, it's hers. She had raised her voice, so now my manager had come over because I was late from coming off my break. Manager, is there a problem here? Karen. Yes, she won't give my son her game to play with. She's going to be working now, so she should let him keep playing until we're done. She had this smug look on her face like she thinks her logic is sound, and my manager is just going to agree with her. Manager, ma'am, that is her property, and if she says no, then that's her right. Karen, I'm a paying customer. My son should be able to play. Manager, ma'am, if she said no, that's the end of it. Now you can either sit down and finish your food or you can leave. Karen stomped off to her table and grabbed her things before storming out with her son following behind her. I feel really bad for him because he was really sweet as well. My manager asked if I needed 5 minutes, but I told him I was fine. I put my Switch in my bag and went back to work. Was I the jerk? Does the mom in this situation not see the worker as an actual person? I mean, why would the mom assume that the OP here would have no concern at all about theft or running off on it or breaking it or anything, just even the wear and tear of the thing itself? I mean, how do they plan on giving it back to the OP? They're going to try and take this Nintendo Switch and put it on the counter where all this greasy food is being passed back and forth over and over again. I mean, it seems like she didn't really think this through. She just just said, I want my kid to have this, so give it to him, instead of just saying, oh, I want my kid to have this. What is it called? I'll buy one for my kid. It's a weird type of solution making where you put the burden on other people, just random bystanders, like in this case, the OP. My wife cheated, then hired a private investigator to track me down after I ghosted her. Subscribe on YouTube with notifications and follow Am I the Jerk on Instagram. Is my ghosted ex-wife possibly tracking me down? I posted a few months back, but it got removed, about ghosting my ex-wife when I found out she was cheating on me with a coworker, which I witnessed firsthand by following her. After confronting her several times and getting nowhere, I mentally threw in the towel. My course of action was to leave her and ghost the living hell out of her. To be clear, we still had separate accounts and no shared assets, so I was able to do this cleanly, and our lease had expired anyway. While she was out of town for work, I packed up my stuff and completely moved out of the apartment we shared. I moved out of the city and onto a parcel of land in a trailer that I bought from a friend. Once she came back from her trip, all that was left was a note and my wedding band. Since that time, my living situation has been great, and I live pretty simply. Since I am a remote worker in a technical field, I can work from anywhere and jump on a plane when I'm needed elsewhere, as long as I have good internet service, which fortunately I do. My intention was to sort myself out and had just contacted a lawyer, but she beat me to it and we had an uncontested divorce. Here is the problem. I bumped into a mutual friend a while back and she mentioned that my ex-wife was outed at work about the affair and things did not go so well for her or for the guy she was cheating on me with. I stopped her from telling me anything more because that woman has done enough to me and I really didn't need to hear it. She also said that my ex is still wanting to contact me and wants to come back together, beg for my forgiveness, etc. I didn't really believe her, but she was adamant about it. I told her not to say anything about seeing me and she agreed. I have no desire to do anything about talking to her again, let alone see her. But 3 days ago, I saw my ex in a coffee shop sitting by herself in a little town near where I live. It's kind of a recreational tourist area, but this is several hours from where she lives. And this cannot be a coincidence, can it? I almost stopped there for a coffee myself, but she was looking on her phone, so I don't think she saw me. But I think because I have since grown a heavy beard and am wearing my hair shoulder length, she probably wouldn't recognize me. My reaction, like before, was to bolt, like I had just seen Satan himself, and I got out of there pretty quickly and stealthily as I could. Anyway, I thought I was pretty untraceable, and now I'm not so sure. Is my behavior normal? I'm also thinking about talking to a counselor or someone about this flight mode I have been getting into when it comes to dealing with my ex. Up until this happened, I was really content and living a great solo life. A friend of mine was wondering if she had gotten a private investigator to track me down. Should I just leave it alone and hope for the best? So this is the first update. I just wanted to update on the situation I found myself in with my ex-wife and have rewritten this about 5 times to make it legible. As mentioned in my previous post, I was concerned that my ex-wife was trying to track me down in an attempt to reconcile or something. I had moved some 2 hours away from where we used to live, and I saw her last weekend in a coffee shop that I go to frequently in the town that is near where I live. I was suspicious that it was not a coincidence that she was there. Luckily, I was able to leave before she saw me. So I came back into town this past weekend to grab a few groceries, and I went to grab a coffee in the place I usually go to as well before working on some documents I needed to fill out for work using their free internet. After finishing up, I left the coffee shop. While I'm walking towards my truck, I hear someone yell, "Paul!" I look across the street and oh my God, there's Kathy, my ex, waving at me. Armageddon had finally happened. I stood there in shock. She runs across the street and approaches me and reaches out to me expecting a hug, and I instinctively hold my arms out with my palms out and she stops. She looks at me really hurt. She then says, "Paul, I have been looking for you. I heard you moved out here and I wanted to see you. Can we talk?" I feel like a trapped animal, guys. I really did. So I relented and said, "Okay. Let's find a table or something and we can just talk for a minute." She asks if we can go to my place and I just flat out said no. She follows me down to a bench outside a little shop at the end of the block. She starts by saying how much I've changed and how much she loves my new look, my beard, blah, 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 blah. She liked how my physique had changed, how I look so fit. She puts on a good act, and guys, she looked hot. She had on these little white shorts and a tank top and her hair in a ponytail like I used to like. My radar was on high alert. I could tell she was really turning on the physical attraction appeal. I had to really rein myself in here and see where this was going. She starts out by apologizing about the whole affair thing. She says karma has really hit her hard after I left. Her company learned of her affair and basically made things so unpleasant that she quit. Her affair partner, who had a fiance at the time, got a reprimand and was moved to another position within the company. He blamed her for his having to move, and she retaliated by telling his fiance everything, which resulted in them breaking up. She lowered her head a little and started crying. I just sat there looking around, not having anything to say. She straightened up and stared at me for a bit. I asked her, what does she want from me? She wanted to tell me that she never intended to start an affair, that she felt like she was drawn in by all the politics and positioning in the company, and thought the affair partner really manipulated her with his charisma and power within the company, and that she stupidly thought she was using him as much as he was using her. She was going to come clean with me, especially after I accused her of having an affair. She hated herself during that time, and the after work drinking was her attempt to medicate from the guilt that happened right after I left her. She felt so foolish, so alone, like her heart had just imploded with loss. She immediately broke things off with her affair partner. She felt that since I wouldn't contact her or talk to her, that she had to find me and see if she could make things right for us and if we could start over again. She knows that we are divorced, but maybe we could have a clean slate. I just stared at her. I let her have it. I'm paraphrasing the conversation, but here it is. How dare you think you can just come out here and think you can just wipe away all the crap you caused? I'm to forgive everything you did to ruin our marriage? I told you before, if you cheated on me, we were through. There is no forgiveness. There is no reboot of this relationship. You killed it. You destroyed what we had the minute you stepped out on me. How stupid do you think I am? I followed you one night and saw you go into a hotel together. Do you know that? I then realized that I had been raising my voice and people were starting to notice. She started to sob. She grabbed my arm. I let her cry on my shoulder a little before nudging her away. She looked up at me. I deserve all of this, Paul. I know I do. Can you at least let me take you to dinner or something? I don't want to leave. I want to talk more. I want to make sure we have everything out in the open. I need time with you that you didn't give me before. Please, Paul. I know you may not want to hear this, but I love you so much. And I didn't know how much I loved you until you left me, and it broke me. And I broke you just as bad. I can't forgive myself. I don't want to forgive myself until the day I die. She started hyperventilating and sobbing so bad that I pulled her up and hugged her. I know. I felt like that was the only thing I could do to maybe calm her down. At that moment, I realized I did actually break her heart like she broke mine. I started walking with her and then found a nice quiet path to walk on, and things settled down a bit. I then asked her how she found me and did she hire a private investigator. She laughed a little and said no. She thought about it. She ran into Stacy a couple of weeks ago and she asked her how things were going. Stacy let it slip that she saw me. Kathy made her spill every single detail. Stacy didn't want to tell her because I told her not to, but she would not let her go until she did. But all she really knew was that she saw me here in town and that I lived somewhere in the vicinity. So she started coming here on her days off to see if she could find me. She really blushed when she said that. I kind of chuckled. That damn Stacy can't keep her trap shut. So we did go to dinner. We found a nice little place with a patio. I made sure we didn't drink anything. I didn't want an excuse for her to soften me up or claim she was too sloshed to drive back home. We actually had a good talk, and afterwards I walked her back to her car. She wanted to stay and pressed me hard on it and wouldn't relent. She hadn't been with anybody since I left and swore up and down that I was the only one she wanted. I told her no. It's still way too soon for me to go down that road. She begged to see me again, but I was non-committal. I gave her my new email address, but that was it. She wanted my phone number, but I told her no. You'll just blow it up with texts and calls. She cried about that one. She said she would be back in town next weekend if I was interested. I didn't say anything to that. She said she will email me and tell me all the details of when when/where. Before she left, I asked her point blank if she would forgive me if I had done the cheating. She sat there thinking, and she said yes, she would in time, but only if we saw a marriage counselor or if we could work through the healing process with lots of talking and maybe even a binding agreement. I said, okay, maybe I could do that 5 to 10 years from now. She said if that's what it would take, she would wait. So then she took my hand in hers, looked me in the eye, and said something that really surprised me. She said, "Damn, Paul, I will always love you and will do anything to prove it." At that, she left. I am still so shook by that. She said it with such conviction, I still can't see myself back with her. Right now, I can't even see her as a friend with benefits. Maybe a friend, but damn, I just don't know if we could ever work out again. Don't call me a chump because second chances are rare in my book. I went home and had a nice long run and a few beers and felt I was in a good place now. Can someone guarantee me that she wouldn't ruin that? I don't know. I just don't know. It's too fresh on my mind, but I have the luxury of time to sort this all out and get some perspective. You would think that's where the story ends, but there is actually one final update. Okay, so this will probably be my last update. To recap, my ex-wife did find me and we did talk. After over a year of her being ghosted by me, her intention in finding me was indeed to reconcile and restart our life together. To those that wrote me predicting that I would be the typical beta blue pill fool and forgive her and fall back in with her, you will be sorely disappointed. She did write me a long email this past week professing her love and regret for the affair once again. She wanted to come back out and spend the weekend with me. My response to all of this was to shut her down. I have been perfectly content to live the solo life for now, living in my remote location and keep my situation as uncomplicated as possible. I have enjoyed the company of several women and friends, and at 32 years old, I feel there is no hurry in changing things up. I have my own self-determination roadmap and I intend to follow it. So in answering her email, I refused to give her my new phone number. I laid it all out. I told her no. I do not have any intention in reconciling with her. She made her bed and I no longer trust her, nor do I know her any longer. I wished her the best and will consider her a possible friend, maybe someday in a future yet to be determined. My vagueness really frustrated her. So she replied with something very telling. She was, of course, thoroughly disappointed in my response, but she also informed me that she had accepted a job offer several states away and her real intention all along was for me to come with her. She knows my job is remote and I can live anywhere that I choose, and she thought I would consider coming with her, and in exchange, we would have a brand new start in a brand new location. She had little time left before she would be leaving and wanted to see me in person and put the hard sell on me. Fortunately for me, I have to leave for business for about a week, so our time is up, thank God. So she will be gone from my life now. I imagine I will get a few more emails for a bit longer, but in time I believe she will realize her time with me has expired and she will have to find someone else. And she may cheat on them too. I just thought I would share the update. So guys, live your best life, get rid of that old baggage and empower yourself to move forward. Good luck to you all. I wasn't sure where this is headed the entire time. I kept thinking that no way he's gonna go and do it. And then I thought maybe he will get back with her, and then I went back and forth the entire time. Even though he did seem pretty clear in what his philosophy was on the whole thing, the fact that he did give in and had this dinner with her and talked about how it was such a nice time and then gave her a way to contact him all made me think that maybe he would go back to her. He seems to believe the whole private investigator thing not being the case because of what she said, but seems like some people still believe that there was a private investigator involved given the circumstance. I just don't know how you come back from that and if you can come back from that. Let me know down below if this is something you think you could ever forgive and forget, or is this a permanent deal breaker, end of the relationship forever. In this malicious compliance story, a sarcastic patient said, "Oh, you might as well hang up on me, everyone else is." So I did. An extremely rude and abusive patient calls our appointments office as the clinic cancels canceled and moved his appointment. My coworkers explained that he called the wrong office and offered to transfer him. He became threatening and was hung up on. This repeated many times. He finally came through to me and started cursing me out, then said, "Oh, you might as well hang up on me. Everyone else is." So I did before he finished speaking. I was going to anyway for the foul language he used. He stopped calling after that. I think a lot of the time people forget that when they're calling a business, the person on the other end of the phone is a real person. They have to deal with this kind of stuff all day long. So being antagonistic like this isn't really helpful. Maybe just say, "Hey, this is what happened," instead of saying, "I bet you're going to do this because they did." And obviously, if he's using foul language on her to the point where she's making the OP feel uncomfortable, then that's not going to help you very much anyway. Sir Sam tries the charity or how a neckbeard got in the back door. Player 1 is me, Lady Saber, pretty social personality, but uncomfortable in large groups of people that I don't know. I'm wearing a dark blue full-length dress, matching earrings, and nude heels. My hair is let down and curled gently over one shoulder to cover the cut side of my face. Player 2 is John, my finally official boyfriend. He's looking sharp, wearing a white shirt under a matching light blue vest and tie, pressed pants, and polished shoes. He's a much smoother dancer than I am. He has a bit of a temper and will inflate when provoked. It's pretty funny. Player 3 is Sir Samuel Smoothcheeks, the chaste and chivalrous knight, creepier than a millipede's legs. He has a high-pitched voice and needs lotion to slip through doorways. I would describe his appearance, but I'm saving that morsel for later. This story takes place mostly at our school's winter dance. It's not quite prom, but it's still a black tie affair. It's hosted on February the 14th and raises money for a charity. This year, it's supporting a local women's shelter and support network in the city. There are a bunch of silly traditions everyone follows. The guy asks the girl to be their date, and there's a race between someone in a chicken suit and the school's mascots afterwards. All this stuff is designed to drum up interest and to get more people to buy tickets. The week before the 14th, Sam pays me a visit at Go Club. The whole scene reminds me of the beginning to Lose Yourself by Eminem. If you had one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted to capture, just let it slip. He makes a big show of himself, making his proposal in front of everyone at the Go Club. He's wearing his usual beard gear TM with extra crust. He scratches his head before extending the same hand for me to shake. Yo, his palms are sweaty, knees are weak, arms are heavy, there's vomit on his sweater already, his mom's spaghetti. He's nervous, but on the surface, he looks calm and ready. Okay, I don't think those weird stains are puke, but he still smells bad enough. The axe makes a cover, but it's as good as this cover, referring to that old video of Psycho Girl tries to sing "I Will Always Love You." He shifts his weight a few times and goes through a series of nervous ticks before smoothing out his jimmies and asking,
Lady Saber, do you want to go with me to like the winter dance thingamabob?
to drop bombs, but he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out.
I just think it would be a lot of fun, and I mean, like, all my friends are gonna go, so it'll be a big group, and I think a lot of fun.
There's a pause, then
Got you something.
he produces a small bouquet of white chrysanthemums and roses from his backpack, crinkled and slightly wilted. I don't know why, but this memory always reminds me of macaroni art. I think it's worth mentioning that in Belgium, those are flowers you bring to a funeral. I'm flushing bright red. It's dead quiet and everyone is looking at me, including Mr. Teacher, who is trying to hold back a cringe giggle. Sam, I'm going to go with John. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes Rabbity choked. He's so mad, but he won't give up that easy. Nope. There's more shock on his face than a victim of the electric chair. How could I reject him? He did all the things right. He had a compelling speech, an irresistible gift. He even proved his alphaness by totally ignoring the traditional rules of the dance. He quickly falls back to,
Well, I just meant as a friend, of course.
much in the same way one might fall from a roof. I tell him again that I'm going with John.
Well, has he asked you yet?
Well, no.
Haha, well, it looks like you're pretty much single as a Pringle.
No, Sam. John is still my boyfriend and I can't have two dates. He turns and slouches away, tossing the flowers into the trash can with as much reluctance as throwing out a can of raviolis. He glances over his shoulder to make sure I'm still watching the symbolic gesture. Then the rest of the club starts buzzing as Sam storms out. I don't actually ask John until a few days before, just to make him sweat a little. The dance is held off campus at a large indoor venue. Nice high ceilings, great acoustics, hardwood floors. One wall is almost all windows, windows, so from the outside, you can see everyone having a good time. And from the inside, you can see who's arriving. John and I buy our tickets at the door. You can pay $20, $30, or $50 for a ticket, so John drops $60 for both of us. It's a fun time. There's tons of snacks and everyone has showed up. Sam, however, is blessedly absent. I get to enjoy a fun night unimpeded by beardism. Haha, right. About half an hour in, a limousine pulls up outside the building. It's cleverly disguised as Sam's minivan. Sam and 6 other members of the invasion force pile out one side, kicking and bumping into each other through the sliding door. It's a mixed munchies bag. Half are skinny, half are fat, but all but one is wearing a hat. I grab John and we move to a place where we can see the lobby to watch the mummers troupe enter through the front doors. A banana cop who prevents them from going inside without tickets is nearly eaten. Apparently they have no idea that this is a charity event because there is a significant scuffle at the ticket table. John and I are transfixed, nomming a handful of grapes while the plaid armored hedge knights argue about the tickets before angrily leaving. They pace on the sidewalk outside, peering in the window like well-fed Les Miserables orphans before walking off in the other direction. I think I've dodged a firing squad until the next line dance. I'm grabbing a drink when Sir Sam cha-chas real smooth up behind me, laying a warm, sweaty palm on my exposed shoulder.
Hey, Lady Saber, happy Valentine's Day.
7 save us. He's wearing brown loafers, khakis, plaid flannel shirt tucked in under a dark suit jacket, a crooked striped tie, and a pinstripe navy blue trilby top it all off. I forgot the cane. Yes, a dark straight cane in his other hand, leaning away from his hip. Nymeria's 10,000 what? I have to pull myself out of the euphoria to respond. You too. I thought I just saw your group leave just now.
Hey, yeah, we went to the school first because we thought we were supposed to go there. Then they wanted to charge us some retarded amount of money to get in there.
You know it's for charity, right? He's surprised by that but tries to hide it.
Yeah, we knew, but still $20 is way too much.
I'm about to ask how he managed to get in when I notice a semicircle of his compatriots forming around him. I'm by myself, pinned between them and the snack table and a little worried about the stampede. From here, I'll just refer to Sam's friends by the color trilby they're wearing. Blue lifts his hat by the brim in greeting, revealing a sweaty crust of blonde hair underneath.
So you're Lady Saber we've all heard so much about.
Yeah, I guess, I laugh nervously. Each gentle sir introduces himself with a nice tip. White, blue, black, navy, gray, and hatless. They're all dressed in a similar ridiculous array as Sir Sam, though none can top his cane. Gray and navy are skinny, and the only ones who looks like he Googled men's formal wear is hatless. The circle presses in a little tighter as an unintelligible flood of compliments surge at me like a shaken up bottle of dew.
Wow, your dress looks so good. You look in that dress, your hair is really blonde. Hey, it's cool how much you like games. You're so cute, you don't need that makeup.
Black tries to touch my hair. I'm quickly saved as John and company force an opening in the circle and pull me out as a spokesperson from the beneficiary takes the stage to give a speech. Everyone shuts up and turns to listen except for the world's greatest femme-man-ist. Sam sidles up right to my side. John already occupies my left and has an arm around my waist. The speaker starts her spiel and Sam has a witty remark for every other line. We've managed to raise almost $1,000.
Yeah, because you heckin' overcharge everyone.
For an optional charity event. I've been working this organization for years.
Probably just because your boss likes your boobs.
She runs the whole thing. And I just wanted to tell you how grateful I am for this generosity.
Because we're like paying your salary.
They're all volunteers. After each hilarious one-liner, Sam turns to me, making sure I'm able to bask in the warm, moist glow of his comedic taste. I make no reply, pretending to be intent on the speaker, but that doesn't stop Sir Sam. Milady clearly just didn't hear her champion's japes. He also fidgets and itches himself while edging closer, making it painfully clear that he wants to touch me somehow. This continues for the entirety of the 5 to 10 minute talk. John is getting wound up, silently squeezing my waist like a Cheese Whiz packet. Sam blithely continues with his humor until the people around us start to shush him. Like any classy alpha male gentleman, he makes a mocking face, but eventually stops talking. Eventually, though, he chances one last remark to win Milady's hand. Sam leans in close and drops his voice low.
It's pretty funny. All of us snuck in through a door around the back.
Are you serious? He grins smugly. Milady should clearly be impressed by his cunning.
Yeah, it wasn't even locked. People are such idiots.
You cheated a charity out of more than $100. He doesn't see a problem with this at all. In fact, it's almost an accomplishment.
Yeah, so we showed up. We gave our support. They already have tons of money.
By now, a roar of applause goes up and people people start to make their exit. John and I make our escape like the last two egg noodles after the end speech and lose ourselves in the crowd. It isn't until after the chicken race that Sam is able to locate us again.
Hey, Lady Saber, I'm sorry I lost you guys. Can you give me a ride home?
John and I have separated as I'm waiting for him to bring his truck back from the parking lot, so I'm pretty much single as a Pringle.
I don't have a ride. My mom just dropped us off. Can you take me home?
What about your friends?
Oh, well, I guess they need a ride too. How many people can you fit?
I don't know, Sam. It's not my car. There's a few awkward minutes of standing around before John returns. The rest of the Beatus Brigade start to trickle in. John finally pulls up next to the sidewalk and Sam makes like a rabbitkin to hop on in. He's clambered halfway through the passenger door when John tries to stop him. Sam, what the hell are you doing?
I need a ride, John.
Dude, I don't have space for you and your herd.
Well, how are we supposed to get home then?
What would this evening be without a good vintage wine? Sam, that ain't really my problem. He backs out and stands on the road, giving his hat a tip, holding the already open door for me as I climb in the cab. I don't want to think about what he's looking at as he's standing behind me.
Hey, John, you think we can ride on the back?
You mean the truck bed?
Yeah, there's plenty of room.
I'm more worried about towing capacity than room. Sam, I don't even know where you guys live. I can't spend all night driving around. John and I exchange a look of, why do we need to have this conversation?
It's okay. We all live close by. Wyatt just lives over in Bumshartsville.
That's like an hour away. Seriously, just call your mommy and get her to pick you guys up. Lady Saber and I have to go.
Please, John, can you just drop us all off at my house then? My mom can't pick us up. We're going to be stuck here and it's like cold.
John and Sam don't actually live that far apart, but more on that later. It might have been easy just to drive away, but John relents and they climb into the back of the truck bed. Sam still makes a bid to share the front seat with Milady, but the door is mysteriously locked. From the huffing and puffing, you'd think they just scaled the wall barehanded. Gray, who physically can't manage it, has to be hoisted up. After the whole crew is in, Sam slaps the back window twice, leaving behind a greasy palm print. Hatless was nowhere to be seen, but everyone forgot about that at the time. The ride home is comical. Hold on to your trilbies, folks. Part of this ride is on the freeway, and at 60 miles an hour, even the crustiest hair flaps in the breeze like soggy potato chips. Sam hoots and hollers while a few members of his team look like they're about to be sick. Less than a mile from his house, Sam loses his hat. He looks like he's about to cry, but he puts on a brave face. The original plan was to drop me off first, but I really don't want these guys knowing where I live. So the gentle sirs are dropped off before me at Sam's house, and sure enough, his minivan is parked happily in the driveway. Thanks, Mom. Once again, there are so many cues that Sam somehow just doesn't seem to pick up on, like the fact that Lady Saber actually does care that this is for charity, but yet he's trying to impress her with the complete opposite direction by saying how he got in for free and trying to change her mind and say, oh, that's actually a better thing. It's actually more interesting that I got in for free, when he's not picking up on what she's trying to say. On top of that, they should have just said no. I mean, if you're going to drive on the freeway with 5 people in the back of a truck bed, if for some reason they got in trouble or pulled over, in some states that's a pretty big ticket, and in the worst case scenario, if there's an accident, all of them would fly out of the back of that truck bed immediately onto the pavement. So not to say that doesn't happen all the time. People ride in the back of trucks all the time, but they should have just said no. I don't know why they felt like they had to take them after all of this. At least from this story, we do know that Sam has friends. It's not like he's totally isolated and alone. He has a whole little squad, his own posse, and he's clearly telling them something about Lady Saber because they all are basically saying, oh, we've heard so much about you, maybe implying that Sam has made it sound like they're more than what they actually are. So he's not as isolated as you might think if you only heard one part of this story. If you've ever met someone like Sir Samuel, let me know down below, or if you'd like to submit your own full-length story, you can do so via the link down below in the description. My wife keeps denying having an affair, but I finally found proof, and this is what happened. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube with notifications turned on. So today I wake up like any normal Sunday around 11 in the morning and head to the bathroom to pee. My wife is doing her hair because she had some nail decorating thing with my side of the family today while I watched some football alone. So I was excited. Well, as I'm peeing, her phone goes off and it was sitting on top of the toilet. So I see it's a snap from Snapchat. She picks up the phone real quick and drug the status bar down. Then right back up without looking at the snap. Then hit the power button to turn the phone off. This is on an HTC One M8. Red flag number 1. Reason being, she always just looks at the snaps around me because we know everyone we talk to. We don't hide anything anything from each other, so I thought. So she eventually leaves to go to the family thing, doing nails and all, whatever. I sit down on my computer to play some poker while I am watching the games, and wouldn't you know it, an ad for Snapchat pops up on my browser. It immediately makes me think of what happened this morning, which I had already forgotten about because I simply let things go very easily, and I probably would have with this as well. However, dun dun dun, I never snoop. Ever. I am one who trusts you 100% until you do something to make me feel otherwise. However, I had a really bad pit in my stomach and felt this 100% was in jeopardy and decided to log into her Snapchat. Her password was fairly simple to figure out, so I am in. The first thing I see is an unopened chat message from some person that I have never seen before. I open it up and it says, "I want you very badly." So now, immediately, I'm like, WTF. Now keep in mind, I am a very mild-tempered person, and I do not get mad very easily. However, I am about to flip at this point. However, I get logged out. I guess she logged back in, and you can only be logged in on one phone at a time. I then logged back in, and she said something that I didn't screenshot, saying something logged her out, and she didn't see what he said. He then said this. I must have missed something she said in between as well, you know, since it deletes everything you say after you close it. Had 2 snaps recently, just asking how it was, and I miss you. Now I'm like, who the F? Later on, I found out it's a coworker that is also her boss, while her real boss isn't in the office. So now I am sitting there thinking, I want to hear something more convincing. So I simply respond as her saying, "Oh yeah? What do you miss the most?" Hoping this would squash what I thought was happening in my head. Nope. This is what he said. "How about you? I miss your smile, the conversation in person. We can laugh about anything. And doing the deed with you is amazing." I immediately just lose feeling in my body. I sit in my chair, basically just blank stare, thinking of my life in ruins. We were just talking about trying to start having our first kid. We have been married for 3 years now. We have 2 houses, one we live in and one that we rent. We make good money. We do the deed frequently. She has shown no signs of dissatisfaction at home. Why would she do something like this? I honestly just didn't know what to do, so I went on just to say busted out of impulse. Well, I then just got out because I had seen enough. However, about 5 minutes later, I was curious to if he had said anything. Well, I logged back in because she logged me back out again and his message was gone. Assuming she now knows that I know, I reopen his text box and I see this. Hence, says yesterday at the top. I have no clue how or why this came up. I do feel I can be completely honest with you whenever you ask me anything. Such a good thing we have. Great friendship and great carnal experiences. What else could you ask for? I about wanted to cry. And in fact, I did. She is away at a family function and I am sitting at home for hours with nothing to do but ponder what I'm going to do when she gets home. I have a really close friend that I feel I could talk to about anything with and ended up just doing that. I showed her everything I saw and told her about it all. I then started thinking about all those times she stayed longer for happy hour and then for work functions, etc. FML. Well, she finally gets home and I immediately say, "Can I see your phone?" She hands it to me like nothing is up and is like, "Hi, you too." I then go to her messages to see if maybe she was dumb enough to leave something in there. Oh look, a cleaned up inbox. She never deletes anything on her phone ever. By the way, I did continue an actual conversation with him via Snapchat and basically you can tell he found out it wasn't her and started trying to cover his tracks because he is also married and has 2 kids and they just bought a new house. He was saying haha and lol to everything at this point, acting like it was all a joke, which I will get to. So I then open up her Snapchat and pull up his text box and the text I showed you with what she said is still there. She reads it and is like, "I don't know why that is there and why are you going through my phone? Is that why it kept logging me out of Snapchat?" I said, said, yes, it is. Can you explain this? She then reads it again and says, you can assume what you want, but I sent another one after that saying, great adult jokes, because she forgot the word jokes. This was her excuse for the whole thing, is that it's something they joke about all the time at work and their whole department does it. I'm like, okay, if that's the case, then can you explain these? I then show her the first 3 snaps from earlier. She just kept reading them over and over without saying a word, as well as some that I didn't show of me continuing the conversation with him, which is irrelevant. But she didn't know what to say, so she just kept reading, I guess, waiting for me to say something. To me, she was just admitting guilt because she didn't know what to say immediately and was caught. The last thing I want is this. She swears up and down that she never even thought of cheating on me and that this really was a joke. I have no physical proof, but what you see is pretty hard not to believe. Plus, the kicker being it's on Snapchat, which is designed to erase everything you say or send once you close it. I don't really use the app too much, but I know how it works. We had it out for another good 3 hours, and it was just an argument going in circles after the first half hour. She kept trying to bring up stupid crap to change the subject here and there, and I would derail her and put her back on the subject, and it would just become silent. She just didn't know what to say. She started saying, you want me to delete him? You want me to get a new job? Stuff along those lines, and honestly to me that is admitting guilt even more. I seriously just don't know what to do, and I am hating my life right now. I am so full of adrenaline that there is no way I'm sleeping tonight, so I guess I'm calling out of work in the morning. I would have rather just seen what I did in the bathroom, because if she is really telling the truth, I think it is past the point where I can ever really believe her. It will always just be in the back of my head while doing the deed with her or just in general. My question for everyone is, do you think I should go to his wife and ask her about how she feels about this? Would that be morally wrong of me? Also, I failed to mention that her mom works in the same department as her. Should I bring this up to her and see if she is telling the truth about them joking all the time about this sort of thing? The only thing is, it could really risk another marriage and jobs if I take this route. So here's the first update. This is the continuing conversation I had with him, trying to get more information out of him, but obviously he picks up on it and starts changing his attitude and the way that he says things. Keep in mind, the first 3 things you saw from him, I had asked again what he missed about me. This was his response. Conversations. Coworkers can be so dumb. Confused why you're asking me the same stuff over. Everything cool? I then asked what you see below, and this was his response. Now keep in mind, looking at when I took the screenshot, it is dated 4:55. He said the carnal pleasure with her is amazing at 3:59. Doing the deed. WTF. Amanda, is this even you? I'm confused. I didn't respond. Then he goes on to say, you and I know this isn't a relationship like that. Maybe it was a snap, but frisky situations is one of my top 5 funny office things. Funny to think of coworkers in awkward situations. And then at this point, I had to keep logging in to make sure she wasn't seeing any of this, but I knew he had already talked to her via text, which, oh yeah, she deleted if you remember her cleaning up her inbox. However, this time, she just stopped logging in to kick me out, so I just kept the window open, and this was our last conversation. It was basically him just saying he wouldn't want to ruin their friendship, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, you could see the change in demeanor and how he starts completely denying it to cover his butt, knowing what's at stake. For those of you mentioning that I should lawyer up, please explain why. I right now feel that even if she does admit to this, or that I find out some other way, that a divorce would not be a sour one. As much as she would be a bad person for doing what she did, I truly feel in my heart that she wouldn't do anything to make matters worse. If there is a reason to lawyer up besides the fact that you think it will be a nasty divorce, then let me know why that is. But here is the next update, which is the next day at 11:40 a.m. We had another conversation this morning, and the short version is, I don't believe her. She still denies that she is cheating on me and that the texts were sent in responses to other texts that I didn't see. She also claims that hers were supposed to be dirty jokes, but his were just him being funny about being dirty. I am so tired, yet my body refuses to bat an eye. I am morally crushed. I told her if she went to work this morning, I would be gone when she gets back. She called out right after. I'm not sure how she thought she could even go to work today in the first place. I told her what reason should I believe anything she is saying. She repeats back that there are no reasons. I just kept saying, exactly. The part that is genuinely throwing me off is that she isn't giving up. She would just stand there instead of walking away like she has in the past when caught in a lie. She is also looking me right in the eyes lies when saying everything. It is so hard not to believe her, but I also don't want to believe that she would be that good at lying straight to my face. I didn't think that she had it in her, but with this evidence, I just can't get over it. After everything she said, I simply pulled up the photos and said, everything you said still doesn't change this. She just kept saying, I don't know what you want me to say or to do. I just kept telling her to figure it out because I don't believe you. That is pretty much how the whole conversation went. FML. The next update is later on that day at 12:36 p.m. As you know, she called out of work. Well, I went to get her phone to try and revive the deleted text messages and possibly find the pictures that were deleted from Snapchat via the phone's directories. Well, she handed over the phone, but when I left the room with it, saying I am not going to send anything, she didn't say anything at first. Then about 30 seconds go by and she comes down the stairs saying, I need my phone. I say, but I'm not done with it. She says, well, I need it. I said, use the house phone. She said, no. I took the phone and started to walk upstairs. I said, I want a divorce if you don't give me the phone. She said, F you. Good game. Next update at 1:23 p.m. Well, everyone, this will be my final update of the day as I am packing up my stuff and heading to my mom's for a couple of days. We just had it out for another 10 minutes about how can she expect me to believe anything she says if she won't even let me check her phone. She simply said, I guess you can't. About as close to a full confession I will get, it seems. I am going to talk to my mom and see if the lawyer she is using for her current divorce, the irony, is someone I would want to deal with. 4 p.m. update. I went for a drive the last hour and a half, more so sitting in a parking lot trying to close my eyes and forget the world. It didn't work. This has been so overwhelming. This pain is something I wish on no one. Hopefully if you are reading this and have been through something similar or going through it now as well, that everything works out. Right now, it looks like me and my wife are done as she drew the last straw with not allowing me to see her phone. It was something simple to maybe help me see why they were talking the way that they were, but it looks like it would have ended up being more proof. That night at 1:37 a.m., the update is she basically stayed in our room all day and just came down to talk. She openly told me everything that she knew. She said that they have been emotionally having a relationship for a couple of months now. It all started at work when they just started mutually agreeing on things, and then a dirty joke was told by a coworker, which opened them up to talking about more dirty things. They would compare their marriages and the problems they have, which obviously would bring them closer. The reason she wouldn't show me her phone is because there were text messages of them saying to each other that they want to do the deed with each other. I really can't believe everything she is saying. It is just the kicker that they both send those two snaps basically saying that they already did the deed. I really am so torn because even if there wasn't a physical relationship there, the emotional level was there, and apparently she said if they weren't married, they would have already done it. She also tells me that she was ready to break it off knowing it was going too far. I find this very hard to believe, but she seemed to be telling the truth. I really don't know what else to say right now, but FML. So he ends up looking at the phone bill to get the guy's phone number. He writes him everything that he knows, and they write back and forth, where basically it all just becomes a game of deflecting and saying that it wasn't serious and he didn't think it was a big deal. But when pressed specifically about those two Snapchats, one of the ones being where he said, I want you badly, he said that, to be completely honest, he doesn't even remember snapping, but obviously it was sent. He said it was 100% out of character and the first of its kind. He was sloshed. Not an excuse, it's just a fact. I don't even remember the emotion when I wrote it because I don't remember writing it. So to be honest, I don't think it would have led to a single thing. That was harmless. And for your information, Amanda never once wrote a snap ever to that effect to me, if it puts your mind at ease. He said he thought it was harmless, but he realizes now that it's the furthest thing from it, that it was very selfish, and that he was wrong for doing it. So the OP responded by saying, okay, thank you. Now tell your wife. She deserves to know. I then messaged my wife on Facebook and basically had a long conversation about the depths of all of this as if I believed everything he said, because honestly, the way he said everything and from what I already know of the guy, it sounds legit as much as I don't want to believe it. We basically started our counseling, and it felt like by discussing all of our issues and why she did what she did in the first place, blah, 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 it didn't end on a good note, and here I am now. This whole thing went from bad to worse when she willingly gave the phone up to him, but then as soon as he went away to do what he was going to do, I guess to try and recover the images and text in the phone's directory, she buckled under the pressure and immediately demanded to get it back. So it was already tampered with because she went and deleted all of the messages, but then who knows what she did at that point. Maybe she went even further to try and get rid of another layer of evidence. It's hard to believe anyone here because obviously the two of them, meaning the wife and her affair partner, the married guy, both had time to get their stories together to write each other in the way that the OP didn't have access to, which was the Snapchat. But man, this is a brutal story. The OP, you can tell, it just really does not want to believe this is true, but everything obviously points in this way. I mean, the husband, the one that's already married, is basically saying that they never did anything ever, that it just happened to be in this text that he just happened to see, and he doesn't even remember writing it. He doesn't remember his state of mind because he was sloshed. That all seems a little bit too specifically coincidental.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.